Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to colinslaststand.com. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 107. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by Chris Raygun. Chris, how does today find you?
Not terrible. Not terrible. We had interesting story about the apartment. We had an ant problem for 2 hours. And that was it. It was like they were just passing. It was almost as if like millions of ants just were like, oh, hey, sorry, we're just passing through. And then just ran away.
And what did you do about it? Did you watch it unfold? Did you try to kill them?
Oh, I definitely like eviscerated many of them. But like,
yeah,
you know, they seemed to just sort of be like on their merry way. I have no idea. They weren't going after anything. They weren't like looking for food. It was very strange.
You got to get those scouts if you see them, because I think they laid down their pheromones or something, and it was probably some drunk scout that left some trail for them to follow that led them to nowhere.
A drunk scout. They're the really small ones, so it's we're not dealing with carpenters, thank Christ. But
yeah, those things are frightening, man.
Yeah, they're basically they're enormous. They're dogs.
Yeah, I'm not into that. My ex-girlfriend, she had we went to her parents. They live in rural Massachusetts, and they I guess like the deck or something outside had them walking around or whatever, and I was just like, these things, I've never seen an ant so large like this in my entire life, and it's incredibly frightening.
Yeah, it's dissettling.
So,
an ant should not have a visible shadow, you know?
Ooh, well put. I like that. Yeah. No, they should definitely not be the span of like the width of my thumbnail or something like that. That's not acceptable. I'm seeing some of these animals, some of these wasps. I watched that YouTube channel Hornet King, as I've said in the past, man. There's some of these things that are flying around. By the way, did you see the picture that someone sent us last night on Twitter?
No.
I'm going to dig through, because I'm going to try to find it. It's fucking horrifying. And let me just see, because I saw it. I was watching The Lighthouse last night. Let me see. Is it anywhere where I could easily find it? I get too many tweets. I mean, I'm not trying to brag or anything. It was this fish.
Oh, the fish with lips?
Yeah, and the fish with lips and a human mouth. It's not, I don't know. I looked at this thing for so long because I'm like, this can't be real. This can't possibly be real. It even has like human teeth. I don't understand what's happening out there in the world. In the oceans, in the mountains, in the forests, the plains, the deserts. Eldritch creatures exist everywhere. And it makes me not want to leave my house. And by the way, my house is surrounded by all sorts of fucking creatures of the night too. I bring out my dog Rush every night to pee and poop or whatever, and there are just frogs everywhere. And he just chases around these frogs, little frogs, big frogs, baby frogs, adult frogs.
Yeah.
And they're spiders of enormous size and texture.
Yeah, no, it's insane. The second you step out into the wilderness, it's like a whole different ball game. It's like every Wednesday when you would walk outside at night and there would be that goat-headed man speaking in reverse at 9:30 p.m. on Wednesdays. Classic memory we all share.
Of course. That old chestnut. And I've been leaving my door open, like my back door open, probably too long with all the animals. So I often find like rogue wasps and whatnot in my house. And
oh God!
Then I have to. They don't really do anything. They're just desperate to get out, and then they just sit there and they die. But I like clear out. I clear out that entire section of my house. Like I just won't go there until the next day, and then it's usually just gone. I don't know where they go.
That's so cool. I love that. I love the idea of just resigning to the point where you're just like, I might as well just stop. And die.
They just don't, after, they bang into the windows, they buzz around under the blinds, they might gravitate to a light, but eventually they're dead.
Yeah,
it's over.
It's just like, well, no respite here. And then they just resign their soul to the afterworld. That's sick.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly. I have no idea what goes through their minds during this. I don't know why they even come inside. Go outside. You don't belong in here. Just like I don't belong out there. You don't belong in here. Don't you know that? What are you, dumb? What are you, stupid?
Oh my God.
All right. Well, this is Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. We put it up each and every week. You can get it 3 days early and ad-free by supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/CollinsLastStand, like almost 10,000 of you do. We really do appreciate it. For $1, $2, $5 a month and up, you get different perks, including that early ad-free access, the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, and access to our weekly supplemental podcast, Sacred Symbols Plus, which usually goes for more than an hour, sometimes 2 hours. Last week's episode was part 2 of our Last of Us Part 2 spoiler cast and review discussion, if you can follow all of that. I don't really know what I want to do this week. Maybe we'll do a mailbag. I'll figure it out in the coming days.
Yeah.
When is that Xbox event? That's next week, right? So we're going to need to do one episode before that.
That is the 23rd, so it's on Thursday.
On Thursday, yeah. So we'll need to we'll probably do a mailbag, and then we'll do that Xbox episode.
Yeah.
And catch up with everything. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you so much for your support and your love over there. All right, Chris, we don't have too much news to get into this week. There's some that I want to talk about, but I've really littered this planning document today with just inquiries from the audience. Going to get into some zaniness, as we often do in the beginning. And hey, I wanted to start with Dylan Michael on Patreon, because he wrote in and said, "Hey, gentlemen, just want to let you know I've been feeling pretty depressed lately, and the first 25 to 30 minutes of every show where you guys just fuck around always makes me smile and laugh. Thank you so much." I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm glad that a lot of people understand what we're doing here on our show. We do get into the news. We do have serious conversations and all of that, but we always like to begin with lighthearted and silly stuff. And from what I can tell, people don't really skip it.
Yeah,
like, you can often go a half an hour forward and just get into the news if you want. But
yeah, no, I think it's a good little formula that I don't think I really see all that often in podcasts that are particularly news oriented or even platform oriented. Like I don't see a lot of like PlayStation or Nintendo or Xbox podcasts that really have even close to the same kind of vibe.
Yeah, we're vibing. Yeah, I got to get rid of that G, vibing. And so I'm really silly. Chris is obviously really silly, and I'm really dry, and Chris is pretty dry, and we're both morose and depressed people. So I think it often turns into some pretty dark stuff, but we enjoy it, and we're glad that you're. I don't want to just be a straight news podcast. I don't want to be like fucking BBC World News or something like that, which is a great program. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the BBC World News, but I don't want to be like that. Video games are supposed to be fun, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But Dylan, I'm sorry that you're feeling depressed lately. If it makes you feel better, Chris and I have felt depressed every day of our entire lives. So
yeah, basically,
you'll get it.
I think everybody's feeling pretty down in general. Honestly.
Yeah, what's happening out there in California? I live in Virginia now. No one seems to give a shit about anything here. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really been outside, so I don't really know what the general kind of consensus is in the outer lands beyond my apartment. But I don't know. It's just like a weird situation that everybody's in right now. You know, it's just bizarre. The fact that this has lasted as long as it has is wild, and I don't know. I don't think anybody can blame anybody for feeling a little bit off.
Yeah, I feel like, one of the things that's really bothering me about this situation is the people looking to blame other people for the spikes in COVID and stuff. And I get all of that. That totally makes sense to me. Like that video of the pool in the Ozarks where everyone was together over Memorial Day weekend and people going to bars and restaurants and all of that. And I get that. But I do find it peculiar that all of the protests and everything that like people, just many thousands of people, apparently one of the most or one of the largest by volume or per capita protests ever in the United States, which is what we just witnessed with the death of George Floyd. People seem to be of ignoring that was probably a major reason why everything spread around too. And I really think it's just a lesson that regardless of why you're going out or your intentions or whatever, the virus doesn't really discriminate.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to be as responsible as I can be by just going out as little as possible, hanging out with just a small group of my family, basically. First of all, I don't really have any friends here, but just trying to stay away from people and wear a mask. And I was actually I went and bought mattresses yesterday, a bed, king size bed, my first king size bed, very exciting. And there was just me and the salesman, and we were just talking back and forth. And we were saying, like, you got to wear your mask for other people. Don't necessarily, you should wear it for yourself too, but it's to make everyone else feel comfortable. Yeah, and if we could just do that and not congregate in the streets and flout social distancing and not pack into bars and not, if we could just be a little more disciplined, then I think we'll get okay. Well, I think we'll get by it.
The people who are like running into retail establishments being like, it's a free country, I don't need to wear a mask, are the people who are like most confusing to me, because it's like they've never heard like no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Yeah, no,
it's like,
exactly.
It's exactly the same. It really is just a similar thing where it's like, hey, you know, like the government, the laws that the government imposes on me when I'm a child, or that I'm nostalgic for, that I have, or that have been present for a long time, are totally okay. But any kind of new suggestions are like just complete overreach, and it's like everybody's gotta calm down. Like, just you know, I get it. I get it's tense, but gotta mellow out.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, I mean, no one hates the government more than I do. And you have to just do things sometimes for your fellow man that has nothing to do with what the government's telling you to do or not. I just think it's the polite and reasonable and rational thing to do, to socially distance, to keep yourself out of harm's way and to keep others out of harm's way as well. You know, I don't like the federal government. I mean, I don't want them in my business and in my life. They don't need to tell me to do something in order for me to know sometimes if it's the right or wrong thing to do. So I agree with you. And by the way, and I said this a week or two on the show, there is just a cacophony, a fucking endless stream of videos on YouTube, compilations of like the so-called Karen compilation, the so-called COVID compilations, the public fight compilations, just in the last few months. And I can't believe how much people are giving other people grief out there and vice versa. It just makes no sense. I don't know. We got to do something. We got to be a little more disciplined. I get, we got to start like living normal lives, but we don't need to not wear masks or something like that or whatever. I don't know. Just wanted to say that because we haven't talked about it in a little while.
Yeah.
Be good to each other. So a few corrections to get into, Chris, before we get into whatever the hell else I put in this document this week. Damon Weathers wrote in and said, hey, seamen. Yes, seamen, not seamen. So he's saying seamen as in we are men of the sea on a ship.
Yeah.
Seamen, not C-men. He says, quick correction. Curt Schilling isn't actually in the Hall of Fame, not for a lack of stats or talent, but for his big mouth and Twitter thumbs. As an LA fan, I hate every team he's played for, so I'm not mad he's not in Cooperstown, but I'll definitely pick up Re-Reckoning. Keep killing it, boys. Yeah, a few people wrote in about this. I was surprised by this. I'm not a diehard MLB fan anymore. I had always assumed Curt Schilling was a shoo-in, considering his winning and his statistics. But yeah, he is very divisive. If people haven't followed Curt Schilling, who founded 38 Studios, who helped create Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning, a notorious nerd, but also very outspoken conservative, and has gotten himself in quite a bit of trouble over the years with baseball, with ESPN, and with others. So I didn't know that kept him out. Let's just all agree that Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame and leave it there. Gabe Montez wrote into us and said, hey, skin suits. Just wanted to clear something up with regards to the phrase mucho gusto. Chris has mentioned that it translates to much good and mentions it does not work in the context it was used. However, I can't imagine the phrase much good working in any context other than some kind of caveman vernacular. Mucho gusto should translate to pleasure, or more specifically, pleasure to meet you, and definitely fits in the context provided. Just wanted to clear that up as I couldn't help but cringe when I heard much good. Keep Fridays great. This was a pretty divisive thing that you said last week as well. I think we're all struggling with the fact is like, Chris, are you Hispanic or aren't you Hispanic? Do you understand the language or don't you?
Pleasure to meet you is such a formal... The way that I describe it is always this. It's like Puerto Rican Spanish or Caribbean Spanish is like the way that people talk in New York. And then proper Spanish, the way that they teach it to you in schools, is like speaking English in Shakespearean English. It's just like nobody in New York talks in that way. No, I have never heard in my life, I have never heard in person in English, pleasure to meet you. Certainly never in Spanish. No one has ever said mucho gusto. Never. I've only heard it in like Spanish class. And I remember going home to my parents and being like, this is what they taught me in Spanish. And then they were like, that's not Spanish, idiot. I was like, what?
Dummy.
Yeah, what are you dumb, stupid, or dumb, dude? Like, and it was just such a confusing time to the point where I just gave up learning like proper Spanish. I was like, this whole like Spain shit, like it's done. Like, I'm never going to learn that stuff.
Yeah. Who needs it?
Because my parents just don't speak it. Like, I was coming home and I was speaking it and they were like, I don't understand you. And I was like, I don't know what to do. You put me in a Spanish class.
What am I to do with it's not much good.
What is one to do?
What is one to do? Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna make fun of you too much because I can barely speak English. So good for you. Nonetheless, we appreciate the input. Gabe Montez, thank you so much. We know we have a big Hispanic, Spanish-speaking listener base. We appreciate you. Ron from Roswell wrote in and said, hey, former cockroach crushing Chris and cannabis-consuming Colin. How did you know? I have to chime in on the game price controversy and Tom's comments about Take-Two's gross profit. So I think Ron and I actually spoke privately, and I encouraged him to write this in publicly because this is really good and interesting context. For people that didn't listen or don't remember last week, we were talking, a listener named Tom wrote in and was talking about how a gratuitous amount of money Take-Two makes. And Take-Two, of course, is the publishing or the holding company of 2K Games and 2K Sports and obviously Rockstar. So here's what Ron says. He says, there are a couple of important things to note. The first is that the companies don't measure themselves on gross profit as the primary indicator of health. They look at net profit and earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. That's EBITDA, which is a term I only learned a few years ago. Gross profit only captures the direct costs associated with the products being sold, not all the indirect costs, which can be substantial. So Tom is correct. In 2019, Take-Two made $1.5 billion gross profit, but they only made $333.3 million net profit. That's on $2.6 billion in sales, or 12.5%. In other words, they had costs of $2.334 billion. If they had an unanticipated cost overrun of just 15%, they would be losing money. When you consider they're paying their salaries of 3,400 employees and making more than a dozen games, they're hardly sitting back being greedy. You need to look at the big picture. Focusing just on gross profit leads to very inaccurate conclusions. By the way, their true net profits were actually $232 million, but they had a tax write-off of $101 million that went to the bottom line. So, Ron, thank you for that deep financial knowledge.
Yeah.
$333 million net profit, by the way, is still an enormous amount of money being made. But yeah, point taken. You're right. That is a fraction of what we were talking about as being the profit of the company. Maybe not as greedy as they seemed. And by the way, I don't really believe in corporate greed per se. Corporations, especially publicly traded ones like Take-Two, they are after one thing and one thing only. What is in your wallet? And that's not the picture of your children. That's fucking weird. That's not what I meant. Yeah. I'm talking about the money in your wallet. Not your license, nothing else. Not your unused condom that you're carrying around with you still.
I still carry around a $5 Canadian dollar bill, and I don't know why. I think it just looks neat.
Yeah, the Canadian money it doesn't look real.
It doesn't look real, but it feels way better.
Yeah.
Like the texture of it, like when you're holding it, it's like, this is official. This is shit. This is top shit.
Well, I got my first check from Lily Mo Games, the company I acquired half of, the game developer, and they're Canadian, so it's in Canadian dollars, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, what the check is in Canadian dollars, and I'm like, what do I do? I have to go to the bank, I guess, and ask them. I've never dealt with foreign currency in this way. I've dealt with foreign currency by exchanging it.
Yeah.
But never depositing it. So there's that as well. So thank you, Ron from Roswell. Stay safe. Watch out for those aliens. All right. Let's get into some other things here.
Yeah.
Noah wrote into us and said, greetings, Colin and Keith David. What's with the Keith?
So we on the Snark Tank, we had this whole episode basically where we inadvertently spent like a lot of it talking about just how cool Keith David is and how great his voice is. And so now a bunch of our patrons have just named themselves Keith David. So at every episode, when I read everybody's name at the end, it's just like a litany of Keith Davids. And it's just this long running gag that is quickly hurting me and hurting my soul. And we're probably going to get a cease and desist letter real soon.
Yeah. Did Keith David play one of the characters in Death Stranding?
No, actually. I don't think so.
He wasn't that black guy in Death Stranding, right?
No.
I can see his face. Yeah, I guess that doesn't really look like him.
No, he's not. He's in a lot of video games, though. He plays himself in Saints Row. He plays, I think, Anderson in Mass Effect.
That's what I'm thinking of, Anderson. Yeah. That's the game I played recently that he was in. Yes, of course. Captain Anderson. Okay. Or Commander Anderson. What is it? He gets demoted or something.
It's something like that. Yeah. Admiral? I don't know.
Admiral, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, I don't know. Who cares? All right. Noah says, in the last episode, Colin brought up the argument of the so-called cost of convenience when it comes to digital games. I take issue with this comparison to pizza delivery, as that incurs a cost upon the pizza company, as they have to spend time and money paying someone to get in their car and drive it to your house, on top of possibly meaning the company is short one employee if they don't have a dedicated driver. This is simply not the case with digital games, as they are provided to you instantly upon purchase with no additional cost to the company running the online storefront. I understand they have to pay for servers, but surely server upkeep is less expensive than it is to manufacture the millions of physical boxes, labels, inserts, discs, printing data to those discs, and then shipping them to stores. Unless there's something I'm not seeing here, adding a convenience fee to digital games purchases would be a completely arbitrary fee slapped on there for no reason whatsoever. In short, a pizza company imparts a convenience fee upon customers because the employees are being inconvenienced in order to bring the consumer a convenience. But no such inconvenience is placed upon Sony, Microsoft, or Valve when you download games from their respective online storefronts. Thanks for taking the time to put together such great content each week, and great Tuesdays making keep. I don't like that. No, you were really on a roll until you did that. You were really rolling.
That was a rough one.
But I disagree with this completely, and I wanted to talk about this. The idea that there is no, first of all, I'm not talking about literally adding a convenience fee. So I think you might be understanding me. What I'm saying is that they can keep costs comparable to retail by just saying you have a convenience fee. Like just saying like, well, yeah, we're not paying for discs and inserts and printing and all of that kind of stuff, but we are paying for these other things, and you're getting it easily by just downloading it along your internet connection. But this idea that there's no work or no money put into making a game available digitally is, of course, wildly incorrect. And I would argue that the cost of putting games onto PlayStation Network costs Sony more per dollar made than it costs Domino's to send a driver out to deliver a pizza. So we can continue to talk about this further and really delve into it, but I just think you're wrong there. It's not just server upkeep isn't just this arbitrary thing where it's just like you put money into like a Coke machine and it gives you something.
Yeah.
Like you're not just feeding $100 bills into your servers. You have to pay people to do that. You have to buy equipment. You have to have experts there that monitor everything. People have to put games through QA. They have to upload them. They have to make sure that all of the write-ups are there, the screenshots, the videos. I only know this because I did it for the first time by getting a game on PlayStation Network, and we're currently getting our game on Steam and other networks now. And there's more to it. And you have to interact with people and interface with people in order to make that happen. So this idea that there's just no cost to doing that is wrong. Is the cost comparable to physically printing the games and all of that and shipping them? I would say it probably is comparable. The difference is that they don't have to split the money with another middleman.
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, I think the costs are comparable, but people can write in if they want to disagree. Do you have anything to add to this, Chris? I'm not talking about a literal convenience fee. I'm not saying that like they add $4 or something.
Yeah, I mean,
for convenience.
I mean, I think you could argue that it is arbitrary, but I think you could also that just because it's arbitrary doesn't mean it's like a bad thing. I think it's totally fine. Like if you're selling a game for $60 and it's available online and in stores, I don't really see a problem with keeping those things the same price because you're going to get paid, and obviously you want the digital sale because you're going to get more of that money. But it's like I don't really see a big deal with this if I'm being real. Like I think I like being able to download my game so much that I don't really care how much it costs as long as it's not like egregious, and the fact that it's just on par as like what it's always been is like totally fine to me.
Yeah, I think I don't mind it either personally, and I think a lot of this mentality comes from not only the music industry and how it was digitized beginning with iTunes, but also I think more tangibly the Kindle experience with Amazon and book sales and books being cheaper digitally. That makes a little more sense to me because books are just way more expensive to print and manufacture than a video game. I mean, that's just a fact. But also, I think that, again, the increased cost in buying a physical book has a lot more to do with all of the middlemen that need to be paid as opposed to just the manufacturer. So it's just something you have to keep in mind. We'll see how this all plays out. I just think that Sony does need to play nice with their retail partners for the time being. They would love to undercut them and get people to buy on PSN, but their ultimate goal, like Chris is saying, is to make as much money on digital ecosystems as possible. And by lowering the price, you then have to obviously raise the price again later on, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and then you're still splitting that money with the the service. You're still splitting that money with like Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo or whatever the hell.
Right. We get $7 of every copy of Twin Breakers sold digitally. They make 3. So yeah, that's important to keep in mind too. Good point. All right. David Jacobs wrote in and said, all right, calamitous Colin and cooking mama Chris, with rumors circulating just as quickly dissipating This week would be the PlayStation 5 pre-orders were going to go live. Just when do you think we'll be able to pre-order? If memory serves correct, PS4 pre-orders went live in early June 2013. Your memory is serving you correct, David. We're now swiftly approaching August, and neither PlayStation or Xbox have revealed a price or a date. It's very interesting from an outsider's perspective to see who can hold out the longest. This was a big rumor this week. It doesn't seem to have materialized. Maybe by the time this goes live, it will be up and this will be outdated. But PS4 or PS5 pre-orders are still not live. I have a bunch of notifications set on various websites because I want to buy 4 or 5 of them if I can. So, because I need one for my room, one for my bedroom, and then I want to give a couple away as presents to my nieces and nephews. So, when do you think we'll see this thing? Are you excited for the pre-order? We're going to talk a little bit more about availability later in the news, so we'll leave that for then. But are you looking to pre-order soon?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that immediately once I'm able to, I would like to do it. It's kind of weird that we're this close. Not that we're necessarily super close to, the launch of these things, but we're definitely further in than we have been historically. And it is interesting. I don't know when we'll see it, really. I think it would be smart for Microsoft to, I think, just show the price. At this July 23rd event. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. But I think that would probably push Sony to be like, okay, well, now we got to do it because they got a heads up on pre-orders. Although I do wonder if maybe they kind of boxed themselves in by announcing both the discless and the disc at the same time, because it means that people will be probably expecting a price for both of those at the same time. Whereas there's rumors still about another Xbox that they haven't shown. I think it's codenamed Lockhart or something, where it's supposed to be surprisingly cheap, and they're supposed to reveal that in August, apparently, according to rumors. But it's weird because Microsoft kind of, if that's true, then they have a chance to come out ahead and react. So I don't really know how. This is such a weird scenario. I feel like they really are just trying to hold out really, really long.
Yeah, I think, this goes into what Ethan Fitzgerald wrote into us about. He says, hey, Bubsy Colin and Nat Chris. Oh, that's rough. With all the rumors circulating that Sony will soon announce the price of the PS5 and pre-orders, I can't help but ponder the age-old question. Is it better to announce this information first, or is it better to wait for your competition to announce this information and undercut them if possible? It seems to me that Sony would be better served to announce this information first if they firmly believe their console will be more expensive. On the other hand, if the console is cheaper than the new Xbox, they're better served waiting. What are your thoughts on this? It is an interesting conundrum, Chris, because I think the thing that a lot of people are not focusing on in this question is not so much price and not so much preemptive striking the other person, but just being available first is a great advantage to excited people that can only afford one console. And they're like, fuck it, I'll pre-order the PlayStation 5 if it's available first. So I think, I really think you have a massive advantage going first.
Yeah.
And I think that advantage just comes from pent up excitement about something new. And I think whoever goes last is just going to lose some of those people by proxy. Maybe they'll get them later. Maybe they'll get them also. But I just think you want to get it out first. And I think if Sony really wanted to be a dick, they would open pre-orders the day of the Xbox event, which is something that I think is in the realm of possibility. And they have to go soon. It's not, you were saying that it's maybe not a big deal. It is weird, but maybe not a big deal that they haven't gone yet. I think it's a huge deal that no one's gone yet. I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea why they're not talking about this yet. And I don't know if it's to wait for the other shoe to drop with the other developer or the other hardware manufacturer, if it's to try to make sure they're getting the most accurate price, if there's adjustments because of COVID, maybe things are getting more expensive, they're supply constrained, which we're going to talk about a little later. I don't know about all of that, but I do know that I would be eager to get this out as soon as humanly possible. Even if it was the middle of the night on a Saturday, I would get this out as soon as possible because people want to buy. I mean, we're ready to go, Sony. Let's get this thing pre-ordered because I don't want to be paranoid about this, about not getting this console and figuring all of that out. And there's a lot to think about. But do you think, what would you do? I mean, if it was up to you and you were at Sony, would you wait or would you want to preempt or would you want to step on Xbox? The competition between the two consoles is actually getting, I don't want to say personal. I don't think that's the right question. We'll talk about that a little later too, but it is getting more heated and the directions that they're going in are different. So I think that they're really competing in kind of a hand-to-hand combat situation right now. What do you think? Yeah,
I mean, if I was a Sony exec, I'd want to get out because Xbox is already locked in. They've got a date. They've got the 23rd. And that's when they're going to show a bunch of stuff. They might not show price, but maybe they might. And they certainly can't just, oh, hey, like if I'm an exec at Sony and I say, all right, it's July 16th, let's put out the pre-orders for the PlayStation 5. Xbox has to wait a week. Like they have to wait for that they have to wait for that 23rd event. Because they're not going to be able to push the event forward and go
that's a good point.
Like they're locked in.
Very good point.
I feel like that's what I would do. And if I was Xbox, I would show the price at that event, and then announce the Lockhart later on, after Sony's been lulled into a sense of security, where it's like, okay, now we can show the price, and then bam, here's a Lockhart system. Here's a Xbox One, Xbox Series X with no disk drive and a slightly underclocked GPU, and it's like, I don't know, $250 or something, like some crazy shit. I feel like there's a lot of ways to go about this, especially this is the first generation where I think that's true. This is the first generation where we're going to have 2 SKUs of a console, specifically a home console. I can't recall the last time this has happened.
Yeah, there were multiple SKUs for PS3, but it had only to do with the size of the hard drive. That was it. These are 2 different consoles basically coming out of Sony, which is true, and it is interesting. And I just think you make a great point, Chris, that Microsoft is locked in, so now Sony can kind of play with the calendar a little bit. But I think it also works against Sony on the other side. When Microsoft announces, and if they do it at that event, then I think Sony's got to wait a little while, because anything they now say, I think, is going to be overshadowed a little bit by what Microsoft is doing. But I feel like for the first time in reading some things with Phil Spencer, again, I don't mean to keep teasing it, but we'll talk about it later because someone wrote in about some of the stuff Phil Spencer's been saying lately, and I want to talk about that. But some of the stuff he's saying, it shows me that I think Microsoft is kind of maybe not in as good shape as I thought they would be. I don't think that they were ever going to outsell PlayStation 5. I just don't think that's in the cards, but it's really becoming about the games, and they really have to show something on the 23rd. Not only Halo, but something else as well, like other things. And I'm really excited to see what they have in store, because I think that the competition is heating up a little bit. And I think Sony's strategy, while really muddy and nebulous in the beginning, is kind of coming together, but it's got to be crystallized around the date and the price and getting this out there. And for people that are eager about PS5 like we are, just go to GameStop. If you like, whatever your merchant is, you can go to Amazon, GameStop. I went to both of those. I went to a couple of others and just set the notification, like notify me when this is available. So go do that, and then you'll be in the running to get one of these things, because who knows what the availability is going to be. I'm almost, this is kind of selfish, but I'm almost hoping the price is higher than we think it's going to be to ensure that fewer people buy it at first, so that there's availability of the console.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but it's true. I'm just so paranoid about not getting it. All right, let's move on. Aaron Chisholm wrote into us and said, hello, C-Man. Colin, when you're not podcasting and having some downtime, I imagine you sitting in your garden chair with a beer in hand and just looking into the distance, like Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino. Perhaps judging the length of your grass. Am I close? Have a good day, guys. Your Highland friend, Aaron. You are close, Aaron. I sit back. I admire my grass, like my lawn, all day when I'm outside. I just stare at it. And it's good. Now, I had to say, so they were putting in sod next door to me as they're finishing that house, and the grass guys were out there, and I was just walking and hanging out with Rush. And one of the grass guys engaged me in conversation. It was one of those conversations I didn't really want to have. He didn't really read the social cues, but he was telling me, he's like, your grass looks great, but you got to cut it higher. And then he was telling me all these things I had to do and who I should call. And I'm like, do you really think? I appreciate it. I appreciate the advice, but you should have just told me my grass looked good and left it there.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can't even imagine having a conversation like that. That is so alien to me.
Yeah, it was, he was a nice guy, but he meant well. But Angel de Jesus, or de Jesus. Am I saying that right? Angel de Jesus.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to call you de Jesus. Says, hello, Colin and Chris. Colin, I really should have asked this question with Knockback episode 126, but I think it's a more important question than anyone has asked you before on Sacred Symbols. Is Oscar the Grouch homeless? This question comes from last year's Sesame Street adding its first homeless character, to which I reacted, what the fuck are you talking about? I couldn't understand how they were disrespecting my boy Oscar, and this erupted into a heated debate amongst friends. Regardless of how it looked in the trash can, Oscar was making the best of a bad situation. That situation is that he's homeless. What say you? All right, so Angel, I have a surprise for you here. My brother Dagan is lead animator and character designer at Sesame Workshop. He works on Sesame Street products and Sesame Street itself. I have asked him to answer this question for you And so he's going to answer it right this very second. Dagan, I throw it over to you.
Hi, guys. Dagan here, co-host of CLS Knockback, an all-around cool dude. So I'm here today because the question was proposed to me. Is Oscar the Grouch, in fact, homeless? So I was kindly called upon you guys to weigh in on this. Now, for those of you who may not know, I'm actually an animator at Sesame Workshop. I've been working at Sesame Street in New York since about 2009, so a pretty long time now. Obviously, I'm in a unique position to answer this question for you all, so hopefully I could shed a little light. So, the burning question that everybody wants to know, apparently, is Oscar the Grouch, in fact, homeless? Now, I have to say to thee, on behalf of Oscar himself, how dare you? Oscar is not homeless. His home is his trash can. His favorite thing in the world is trash. You have to understand. So that's where he chooses to live. Oscar is a trash collector. He's a garbage connoisseur, a junk aficionado, if you will. He loves everything gross, everything slimy. He's just a fan of garbage. Now, if you're having trouble wrapping your head around this, as proof, I could proffer up a little bit of backup here. You have to understand something, that Oscar's trash can domicile has this whole sort of House of Leaves thing going on. In other words, the spatial dimensions on the interior of that trash can do not match the dimensions on the outside. It's got this whole magical, mystical quality to it. There's actually quite a lot going on down in the bowels of that trash can. Don't judge it by the parameters of the outside, in other words. For instance, if you're familiar with Sesame Street lore, and you soak in all the episodes, and you're a fan, and you know all these things, you would know that Oscar the Grouch has a pet elephant named Fluffy. He's an enormous, full-size elephant living down there. Oscar's got a swimming pool in his trash can, a bowling alley, a grand piano. Oh, and an ice skating rink, apparently. A majestic spiral staircase. There's a lot going on in that little trash can. It actually reminds me of a funny story, guys. True story, real quick. About 5 years ago, I pitched Sesame an idea, actually, I had, for a potential series of animated spin-off shorts. So they were going to be short cartoons where Oscar actually sublets one of the apartments down in his trash can to 3 roommates. And those roommates were going to be a rusty can, a moldy slice of pizza, and a rat. Sort of a play on Three's Company, a cartoon version of a roommate sitcom. I'm not making this up. I really pitched this thing. And Oscar was going to be their landlord. Yeah, I know. It's pretty weird. Obviously, they didn't go for it. But anyway, guys, in summation, all creatures of the Grouch variety do choose to live in trash cans. Except for Colin. Anyway, thanks, guys. Listen to Knockback. Now, scram! Back to you, Chris and Colin.
All right. Thank you so much, Dagan, for that comprehensive answer. Angel, I hope that puts your fears to bed about Oscar the Grouch, his homelessness, and who he is. No one would know better than Dagan, so I thought he would answer the question for you. Thank you for writing in. Ryan Smith wrote in and said, hey guys, first time writing in. When I hear Colin say the word tantalizing, it sets me into a fit of rage. I just had an irrational hatred for that word. Now I just have to put up with it for a long time since I recognize that it's a staple in Colin's vocab, but enough is enough. In episode 106, Colin uses the word tantalizing 11 times. It seems that this issue has been getting steadily worse as time goes on, and I'm starting to fucking lose it. Now I went ahead and thesaurus that bitch and found some good alternatives for you. Words such as alluring or even mouth-watering should suffice next time your brain fucks up and wants to say tantalizing. Anyway, love everything you guys do. Take care. This was another point of contention. I did not realize it. People wrote in about this.
I don't think I noticed that you said it that often either.
So now I have to be aware of this. Now, I have a problem with what Ryan's saying here, where he's trying to make me use the synonym mouth-watering. I feel like I don't like that. word. Mouth watering.
Yeah,
I don't like
that's
that.
worse than tantalizing, surely.
Yeah, I think so. Alluring's pretty good. That's a good one.
Yeah, you know,
I'll
it's
write that
okay.
down.
But don't try
I'm gonna
to.
write it down.
Don't try. How about this? How about let people talk the way they want to talk because it's a free country? Huh? How about that?
Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, I appreciate it. Like, being a consumer of podcasts, as I know you are too, Chris. Like, you do hear certain idiosyncratic things that people do. Like, I listen to the 538 podcast, which I really like. It's a political podcast. They do that really frustrating thing that I hate that I noticed came to be 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I noticed a lot of people at IGN and Kind of Funny doing it, where they say something and then they go right. You know what I'm talking about? So they'll be like, well, I'm eating my pasta dish that night, right? Or, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? And they do that constantly. And then you just have to kind of filter it in and out and realize that that's just their idiosyncratic way of talking. I'm sure we do similar things like that. I know I do. And you can't focus on that too much. And my thing was always, if you feel like you could do it better, and I'm not saying anyone's saying that, because of course you couldn't do it better than me. But let's say you assume that you could do it better. Sit down in front of a microphone and just talk for 90 minutes or 120 minutes and see if you don't find, and then listen to yourself and see if you don't find your own idiosyncratic things that you do.
Yeah.
Because it could really drive a man insane trying to find all those things and cut them out. I've been trying to be really better about doing a lot of that stuff over time. It comes with experience. But Ryan, I'm really sorry to say tantalizing so much, and you're not the only person that wrote in about it. So appreciate that. Thank you, Ryan. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a foodie. No, seriously. I may like to dress in t-shirts and sweatpants, and my beard makes me look borderline homeless. But in typical times, I'm a huge fan of going out to eat, grabbing great food and drinks, and exploring various restaurants. But this year, it's been hard to do that for obvious reasons, so it's important to find alternatives that can provide high-quality meals that, well, satiate that appetite. Hellofresh happens to be an awesome solution, virtually tailor-made for these stay-at-home times. Hellofresh is America's most popular meal kit, giving you everything you need to cook amazing restaurant-quality meals in the comfort of your own home. There are tons of options, even if you're looking for low-calorie or vegetarian fare, or something for the entire family. And fresh ingredients are sent to your house each week, so you can begin your culinary adventure. I took a look at their recent menu items, and I was left with a watering mouth. Balsamic fig chicken with roasted potatoes and lemony green beans. A beef bulgogi bowl with carrots, pickled cucumber, and sriracha. I mean, I'm telling you, this stuff is the real deal. With ingredients often sourced directly from farmers, and believe it or not, it's typically cheaper than getting the same ingredients at your local supermarket and cobbling it all together yourself. It saves time too, which is valuable, since as I always say on our shows, time is currency. And HelloFresh's meal plans are flexible too. You can add or subtract meals as you need them, put your orders on temporary hold if you're going away or are unable to cook, and more. And HelloFresh's commitment to charity makes it an easy company to support. They gave 2.5 million meals to the needy in 2019 alone. But it's all about the food, and I can't stop staring at all of the meals they have ready for customers in the coming weeks and months. Mexican pork and street corn tacos, brown sugar bourbon steak, and for the Italians out there like me, the Italian Sunday supper. If you want to try America's #1 food kit brand and get a sweet discount for doing so, head to hellofresh.com/sacred80. That's HELLOFRESH.com/SACRED80 to get $80 off and free shipping on your first order. Naturally, restrictions do apply, so visit the site for more details. Again, head to hellofresh.com/sacred80 to get your meal kit delivered directly to your door at a steep discount and with free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/sacred80. James Walker wrote in and said, "Greetings, my two voluptuous C-cups." Man. Just a quick write-in about the milk steak letter. I personally not only drink milk with everything, pasta, burgers, steak, chicken, you name it, I drink milk with it. But I'll do you one better. I hate soggy cereal. I hate it so much, in fact, that I pour myself a glass of milk and take a bite of cereal, then a sip of milk. True, this is more work, but provides an optimal crunch factor for my cereal, and then I don't have a multicolored dye-flavored milk at the end and get to enjoy a pure frosty glass of milk all the way through. Thanks for keeping me sane at my delivery driver job and keep fucking those dead chickens. Thank you, James. I don't know how sane you really are. That sounds completely insane. Chris, I put that in there because I knew it would bother you, so talk to me a little bit about that.
That is a frustrating thing. So I'm trying to. He thinks the milk at the bottom of the cereal bowl taking on the flavor of the cereal is like a negative thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's like such a huge part of the cereal experience, I feel like, right? Am I wrong? Am I
you're absolutely right.
Looney Tune? Like, because
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I swear that's befuddling, my guy. I would never. I have never even thought of doing this.
Yeah, it seems a little psychotic, James. I mean, I have no problem with you drinking milk with your various meals. That's fine. That's not that unusual, especially here in the US. But I don't like soggy cereal either. You have to eat it quickly. I mean, what are you doing? Like, pour the Cheerios into the bowl and then pour the milk in and eat it. And it's not going to be soggy. Are you sitting there? Are you fucking saying the Lord's Prayer before you're eating your cereal bowl? I don't understand. I don't understand.
This is like if somebody was like, hey man, I really like hot wings, but I don't like to get my hands messy. So what I do is I take hot sauce and I pour it in a glass and I take a sip of hot sauce and then I eat a plain wing and then I take another sip of hot sauce. And I know it's more work, but it like, no, that's like, it's insane. That's insanity.
Yeah. And then he would say something like, and then I don't have the sauce at the bottom of the plate to rub up with a piece of bread or something like that. You don't want that.
I barely have to wash my dishes when I'm done. And it's like,
I know. I don't have anything to dip my French fries into. It's like, great. Wow, that's great.
Oh my God. I hate this.
Way to go, James. Stay safe out there. Kevin White wrote in and said, what's up, guys? All this talk about butt cracks and leg crevices got me thinking. Do either of you ever forget what you've already washed in the shower? I always start at my hair, then face, and make my way down. However, there are times where I find myself daydreaming and forgetting if I have washed my hair or face yet, and end up doing it again just in case. I apologize for keeping this all going, but I had to ask. Thanks for all you do and keeping every day great. What do you do in the shower, Chris? Do you have a routine?
I get everything done pretty quickly. I wash my hair, I wash my body, I do everything that I need to do, and then I stand in the shower for about 30 straight minutes with both of my hands up against the wall, and I look down at the ground for 30 minutes, and I just think to myself, why any of this? And then I get out, and then I'm fine.
Is the water hitting your back or your chest?
It's going right in my eyes, actually. It's just straight up, just right over me.
So you're facing the water. Okay. Because I like to sit, like, just stand in the shower and think too, but I stand backwards and let it hit my neck.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm pretty, shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, but I'm pretty persnickety about my shower routine. I do things in a very specific order, and I'm so OCD that if I do it out of order, I have to start again. But that doesn't happen very much to me. So I get into the shower. I like rinsing with mouthwash, so I do that. And then I get in the shower. I brush my teeth in the shower. And then I take my shower poof, which I used to call a loofah, but I was told is not really a loofah. It's a shower poof.
Yeah.
And I use Irish Spring body wash, like the standard green Irish Spring body wash. And I wash my neck all the way down my body. And then what I do is I use Head and Shoulders. And I started using Head and Shoulders in college because I noticed some flakage at one time in college. And then it went away in like 2 days. And then I just never stopped using it. Literally 15 years later, I'm still using this shampoo for some reason. It just works for me. I like it. Mm-hmm. So then I wash my hair. And I think I do that because I feel like my hair gets dried out if I don't use conditioner. And that's like a 2-in-1 shampoo. And then what I do is I have a bar. This is getting fucking nuts. I have a bar of Dial soap, the standard orange bar of Dial soap. And what I do is I wash my feet, I wash my ears, I wash my face, and then I wash my armpits, my crotch, and my ass with the bar of soap. And then I'm done. So I'm basically washing the sensitive places twice.
The fact that you know. The fact that you know, like, because I don't have a plan at all. I don't even have, like, a brand that I rely on. I don't, like, go for the same shampoos all the time. You know, I just do what I assume I need to do in the shower. And then I walk out.
I'm so puzzled by your lack of affinity for certain brands because, like, I am in it for these brands. Like, I use Irish Spring liquid soap. I use Dial bar soap. I use Head and Shoulders. I use Crest Pro Health toothpaste and mouthwash. Like, that's the shit that I use. I cannot use anything. I cannot abide by anything else.
Well, the thing with brands, it's like with clothing and like with games, there's like some level of subjectivity to it where it's like, oh yeah, you know, like these games, I'm not too big on. These ones I like. This clothing, this brand of clothing doesn't feel as good on my skin. But like with shampoo, it's like they wouldn't be selling shampoo if it didn't do what the hell shampoo's supposed to do, right? Like they wouldn't sell toothpaste if it didn't do what it was supposed to do. So I just never.
I guess.
So I just never feel like. I don't know. There's something about it where it's just like I feel like every brand of toothpaste is going to do what toothpaste is supposed to do. So I just don't care to look at it. I just go like, oh, is that Crest or is that whatever the hell other thing? You know, I go by colors really. If it's got good graphic design, I'll go for it.
Yeah, but
Like,
you know what I used to like when I was a kid was Aim. Do you remember Aim, the toothpaste? Aim. It's like a dollar store toothpaste.
Oh my God, no.
It's like a really cheap toothpaste, but my dad used to buy it, and it was pretty. I don't know if it did the work or not. Maybe it didn't. But
I don't know. But then you get like, I know this is like specific to us, but like I know like I did a couple Dollar Shave spots, and they would send me stuff, and like now Manscaped would send me stuff, and it's just all this new stuff that to the point where it's just like I'm so used to using new things all the time that it's actually kind of like interesting because sometimes I'll go to like a world market or something, and I'll be like, oh, I wonder what soaps they'll have. Maybe I'll try this one today, you know, or for the next couple months or however long soap lasts.
Yeah, soap is frustrating because with bar soap, you got to keep it away from the water in order for it to last a long time. Otherwise, it just gets eroded away. Like the Grand Canyon was eroded by water, but just much quicker. So I don't know. I can't. That's just one of our many differences. I just can't relate to being a freelancer out there, you know, just going willy nilly through the toiletries aisle and just picking up whatever catches my eye. I'm aiming in at something. If it's not there, I'm going to be upset.
There's a lot of good shit though. There's a lot of good shit that's not those brands.
Oh, definitely. I have no idea how I even stumbled upon these brands. I mean, that's the thing is just one day I started using Crest Pro Health and that was it. And then I just was always using Crest Pro Health. One day I just started using Dial bar soap, and then I was just like, I'm always going to use it.
All right, so let me ask you this. You go to the store, right? You go to the store, you have no toothpaste. You're a disgusting mess. Your mouth kills people just by being in the vicinity of it. You go into the store, you go into like a Vons or something, or like a Ralph's or a Walmart, whatever. There's no toothpaste anywhere. But there's this brand that you've never heard of, and you know it's toothpaste. Do you get that toothpaste?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a dire situation, like if I'm at a hotel, right?
There
and
you
it's
go.
like, oh, I forgot the toothpaste, so you got to go down to the little store they have there or whatever.
That's me all the time because all the time is a dire situation because if I'm shopping, that's a dire situation because I don't want to be there. I could make so much better use of my time if I wasn't here. So if I go into an aisle and I see toothpaste, that's the thing I'm grabbing. I'm not going to spend time looking. I see the toothpaste, I'm out. I don't got time.
No, I hear you loud and clear there. You used to go to the Vons near my house sometimes when I lived in Santa Monica, and I used to go to that Vons too, and I would pride myself on how quickly I can get in and out. Like sometimes I would be able to get in and out and get back to my apartment in 15 minutes. You know, I would be like, this is incredible because then you feel like I totally relate to what you're saying there. I fucking hate grocery shopping. I hate it. Hate being there. Hate doing it. I always feel like a lot of pressure. I'm like, what do I need? Why am I here? I don't feel like I'm buying enough.
Just having an existential crisis in a supermarket is the most relatable thing in the world.
Well, because you think about all these things you want to eat or whatever, and then you're there. And it's like, oh my God, do I really want to buy Brussels sprouts right now? Because then I actually have to cook these Brussels sprouts. And then you do have an existential breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh yeah, I remember bagel bites.
Yeah, and then you buy them and then they get freezer burned because you don't eat them. You know, it's a lot of things to think about. I used to really like living near a supermarket I could walk to because I felt like I was spending less money and wasting food. Now I'm just willy-nilly getting shit delivered from Publix, and it's a fucking free-for-all. You know what I mean? I just buy whatever it is I want. I'm like, all right, fine. Whatever. Who cares? Yeah. What do I care? Let's see what else is going on here. God, I can't even keep up with all this fucking nonsense you guys are writing into. Oh, this one is going to fucking throw you into a fit. How long have we been going?
A long time.
We'll talk about video games at some point. Joey Gondholiker wrote in and said, hello, fellow Vitamin C men. After hearing last week's discussion on the amazing experience that is a cold shower beer, I raised to you an alternate shower experience, the shower orange. Now hear me out. While the shower beer is amazing, there is nothing quite like ripping and tearing into a nice cold orange peel in the shower and eating an orange without fear of sticky, juicy residue. Pair this with the shower beer and, oh my God, and you have an excellent bathing delicacy. Please tell me that I'm not the only one who's done this and or that I'm a complete psychopath. Keep doing all that you do and keep away from that scurvy. That is fucking nuts, what Joey just said. He's peeling oranges. It's like Kramer in that episode of Seinfeld when he's making salad.
With the garbage disposal in the drain. Yeah.
What are you doing with the peels?
I guess he's throwing it in the waste bin?
Yeah, I would assume so.
This enraged me when I read it. But I think I understand on some level, because there is something nice about just like ripping into something, right? Like if I could somehow take a shower, right, and somehow get all the effects of like being perpetually clean while eating hot wings without the hot wings getting touched by the water or getting soggy or gross, that'd be amazing. Because you'd be like, yeah, you could just rip into this shit. You wouldn't have to worry about like being like, not being like messy and shit. I get that. And I guess an orange is citrusy, so it's almost like you're still kind of cleaning yourself. But but at the same time, I would never in a million years do this, because I would be thinking like, what the hell am I going to do with these peels now? The waste bin is never really in that convenient of a spot when you're in the shower. It's never like, it's just like reach your hand over and throw it in. It's always like this weird, cumbersome, fucking Tetris shape of a place. And it's just like, this is too much for me, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I gotta say no right off. I just gotta say, Joey, I can't allow this to continue. I don't know that this is in the spirit of what you're supposed to be doing. I don't know that you're supposed to be eating in the shower. And I also feel like I'm not like the most esteemed or experienced eater of oranges, but it's not like that messy. What are you doing to the orange that it's like destroying your life and you need to eat it in the shower?
It's the juice that gets sticky. So like I get it on that level. Like if I, like I said, like if I could just eat hot wings and like find some way to like be as messy as possible without having to deal with the consequences of it, I would totally do that. Like if we were like reptile people and like I finished like eating a wing and then I shed my filthy skin and just crawled out of my own skin so I didn't have to wash, like that'd be ideal.
Oh, that's good stuff. That was a nice reference. I appreciate that. All right, Chris, people want to talk. I promise we're almost to the video games, I think.
Almost.
But people wanted to talk more about geese this week, and so I want to read these off, and I don't know, I just have a differing opinion than some of these people. Ryan Hart wrote in and said, "Hey, CNC, so to continue the discussion on the aggression of geese, at my alma mater, Notre Dame, there are 2 lakes on campus, one of which is heavily occupied by geese. I've seen countless occurrences where geese would lunge at students walking by, especially when their goslings, baby geese, were near. I specifically recall when out for a run one morning being lunged at by a goose and yelling at it, 'Oh, fuck off,' only to look up and see an elderly couple walking nearby, looking as if they witnessed some heinous act. Anyway, I'll never forget that, and I doubt they will either. Keep up the great work, guys, and avoid geese if you can." Melissa Maxwell wrote in and said, "Sorry, Colin, but I had to say a goose would absolutely kick your ass. I grew up on a farm and our geese would attack everything, including 1,200-pound horses. They don't give a fuck about anything. I'm so confident in this, I will send you 100 fake Canadian dollars if you provide video proof of you defeating a goose." And Adam Bagford wrote in, well, he's a little more uplifting. He says, "Hey guys, it's time to end the swan debate once and for all." So remember, we're talking about swan and geese. These are literally 2 different animals, but we'll just put them together. "The swan's elongated neck is not only its greatest weakness, but also a human's greatest asset against them. Let's say you encounter a large group of these monsters. The first thing you should do is snap 2 of their necks. From there, you have yourself some makeshift nunchucks to deal with the rest of the fucks. Or the flocks." He didn't say fucks. I said that. I'm too far away from my computer. "I imagine a scenario where you hit each of those sons of those bitches flying. I hope this puts the argument to bed once and for all. I just can't imagine being in a one-on-one fight with a goose or a swan and losing." Yeah. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're not aggressive. I'm not saying that they won't get a few hits in. I'm saying that I'm going to kill that swan or goose if it comes at me. I'm killing it.
I'm there's no amount of words that can convince me. You have to put me in a room with a goose. That's really the only way that I'll be convinced. Like if I walk out of there and my eye is hanging out, and like, my brain has a dent in it and I can no longer remember 7th grade, then I guess you're right. But like, I can't foresee that happening. Also, baby geese are called gosling. Like Ryan.
I think so.
That
just
is
like that.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah, I would agree with that conclusion that you've drawn. And I feel like, listen, I would be afraid. I would get hurt. I would want to wear eye protection because if I lost my sight due to getting my eyes pecked out, I'd have to, understand I'd have to kill myself, right? If I couldn't see anymore. Everyone is on the same page about that. So I would want to have eye protection, but I'm just like, I can understand being frightened. I can understand it not being easy. I can understand it being quite a battle, but I'm not losing to a swan, and I am not losing to a goose. It's not happening. It's not going to happen. I do not understand how that could happen. I'm 180 pounds. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm not the manliest of men, but a fucking 25-pound goose, I will punt it like a football.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, I'll do it. Don't tempt me because I'll do it.
I believe you.
I don't want to have to kill any geese and then find myself, in trouble with PETA or something like that.
Yeah,
they kill the goose.
You go out to pick your Five Guys up from the delivery and they splash blood on your coat.
All right, there's a couple more here. Jefferson Wentworth wrote into us. I'm a little worried about Jefferson. He says, "Gentlemen, is it weird I have never played a video game with headphones? I don't see the appeal. I don't even know where I'd plug them in. Am I missing out?" Jefferson, look at the bottom of your controller.
Yeah, you'd plug them in. I will admit, though, back in the day, it used to be, like, I used to do it a little bit back in the day, and I had these, like, really awkwardly long headphones that would plug into the TV proper, and that was a hellish time. But
yeah, you could do that, but we're on PlayStation 4. Jefferson, we've been playing this console for 7 years. You haven't noticed that there's a headphone jack on the bottom of the controller?
Yeah,
Jefferson.
I don't really play. I see a lot of people streaming who say that, like, yeah, I just play video games with headphones. Personally, I prefer the volume of the TV. I prefer not having my head suffocated by something as I'm trying to, get into any video game, really. I do think it can enhance the sound or the experience. Like Hellblade, I think is a game that you absolutely have to play with headphones to really appreciate. But yeah, I mean, I don't really think you're missing out on that much. Really, it's not like a necessity.
No, and I don't think I like listening to the TV too. I've used headphones on PS4 because it's just so easy. When I stream, I actually do put my headphones into the back of the TV because that's all I have. I don't have a really new, I'm using like a 1080p RCA TV in my office because my other nice TVs are in my room and in my living room. But I was just more concerned that Jefferson didn't know where to put the headphones. Jefferson, just look at your controller next time you play it. And I think you'll figure it out where to put it. Thank you for writing in. By the way, Jefferson Wentworth is it's a fantastic name, by the way. You sound like you have to be rich with a name like that, Jefferson.
Yeah.
There's no way you're not rich. No way.
That's a very ornate, wealthy name.
I love it. Finally, Robert Egan wrote in and said, "Hello, fine gents. This is an addition to the hygiene conversation. What's your stance on cotton wool buds, what you call Q-tips? Who the fuck calls those cotton wool buds?"
What? Cotton wool buds?
I know the medical consensus is to never put them in your ears, but I feel it is just too good and I can't stand having a dirty ear hole. I'm with you here. I'm cleaning my ears with those things.
What is the scientific? What does it say? Like,
well, you're not supposed to put them. You're not supposed to put them in your ear. You're supposed to kind of wipe the outside of the ear with them and clean up that. But you're not supposed to put them in your ear. But I'm putting them in my ears, man. I'm not like digging into the fucking eardrum, but I'm putting them in the ear. I don't want this waxy buildup in my ears. I don't want it. Chris, what do you do with cotton wool buds?
I use them a lot. I clean my ears a ton. Like,
yeah, I love doing
it. First of all, it's just a nice feeling, honestly. But also, just like, I don't want to have filthy ears.
Cotton wool buds? What planet are you from, Robert?
It's definitely like an English thing. That's like something that they say over in the Queen's country.
Yeah. Let's just keep it there then. All right, Chris, let's get into finally. Let's see. Hold on a second.
An hour.
We've been recording for an hour, so let's get into what we're playing. It says here you're playing Horizon Zero Dawn and The Messenger. So talk to me a little bit about your experiences.
Yeah, so Horizon's getting better. I like it. It is... the UI still really bothers me, but I'm just going to chalk that up to it being like a earlier in the generation PS4 game, and it's like, all right, well, I'll get over it. It's a very, very noisy UI, and I hope that the next game doesn't really lean in that as much. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. And The Messenger I picked up recently, which is like a side-scroller kind of ninja game. It's made in like a very 8-bit kind of aesthetic. Or I think maybe 32-bit is more accurate, I think. But man, The Messenger is really good. I played a little bit of it like a long time ago, but there's like so many like really cool... The way that you move in The Messenger is really sick because it's like you can only trigger double jumps after you've attacked something in the air, and it's like just little things like that kind of incentivize attacking and movement at the same time. is just like a really cool and like a really neat, like subtle twist on enhanced mobility in these kinds of games. I really like it. Also, the soundtrack's really good.
Yeah, The Messenger is phenomenal. And one of the best games of the year it came out. So it came to Switch and PC in 2018. It came to PS4 last year. And that's when I played it. And then it actually came to Xbox One this year. It's by Sabotage Studios and Devolver, not surprisingly, as the publisher of the game. It's excellent. It's an excellent game. I highly recommend it. It's very inspired by Ninja Gaiden and Shinobi in terms of its aesthetic, but it's kind of like half linear platformer, and then it turns into kind of like a Metroidvania. Yeah. And it's really, really fantastic if you're into old school games. And I think you're right. It's got that 32-bit or somewhere between the 16 and 32-bit side scroller aesthetic. It's beautiful. So yeah, highly recommended. Absolutely highly recommended to check that game out. So that's a great pull, and I'm glad that you're enjoying Horizon more as it goes on. Remember, we'll have Horizon Forbidden West on PS5 next year, the sequel. I'm still playing The Last of Us Part 2. It's still really good, going through the game slowly and trying to figure out, just kind of trying to marinate on it a lot more. We got our spoiler cast out now. There's no pressure. Now I'm just trying to play it through. I want to get the Platinum Trophy, so I'll have that soon. When we're recording this, Ghost of Tsushima actually comes out in like 6 hours. I don't know what I'm going to do because I really don't want to play it until I get The Last of Us off the plate, or I know I'm never going to go back to it. So yeah, I think I got to just wait a few days on that. Plus, I have to play BioShock 2 for knockback, so I might be a little late on Ghost of Tsushima. But I've also been playing Bloodstained: Curse of the Moon 2, which was kind of the surprise release. They announced it and released it very quickly from Indie Creates. And it's the sequel to Curse of the Moon, which was the prequel to the Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, the core Metroidvania game that came from Iga. And it's fucking awesome. I actually streamed it last week on Twitch, Long Island Viper, my Twitch channel. Kind of went in blind and played it for the first time with the audience. It's still very much dedicated to the NES Castlevania games, especially Castlevania 3. It is absolutely beautiful to look at in its 8-bit aesthetic, and the music is awesome. $15 is a really great price, and it has a Platinum Trophy too, which the first one didn't, so that's pretty nice. Highly recommended if you're into Bloodstained at all. If you're into Castlevania, old school Castlevania, Curse of the Moon 2 is excellent. Go check that out. Phantom Moth Stu wrote in and said, "Hey Colin, just after a quick update on your JRPG a month challenge is going." That is not a sentence, but I'm going to tell you anyway, Phantom Moth Stu. Not well. I've done I played 3 JRPGs all the way through this year. It is July, so I should be on my 7th. I'm not going to give up until the end of the year. So I'm going to keep the spirit alive, but I just don't know if it's going to happen. We'll have to find out. And Max Cannon wrote into us. A lot of people have been asking us about this, Chris. He says, "Hey guys, when will you play Uncharted: The Lost Legacy? Every time I hear you complaining about developers and publishers not making shorter games with higher quality, I want a Looney Tunes style jump into my headphones and emerge from your computer to shake you by the collar and say, then why haven't you played The Lost Legacy yet? Vote with your wallet and vote for more games like The Lost Legacy." I don't know why I've not played this game yet. I actually really love Uncharted. So you would think that I would have gotten right into this, but I just still haven't played it. I don't know why. I don't know why. What about you, Chris?
I haven't played it either. I don't even really know what it is based on the name. Like is this DLC?
No, it's like a standalone.
Is this the Vita one?
No. That's Golden Abyss.
Oh, right.
Lost Legacy is the standalone release that came out, I think, in 2017, based on Uncharted 4.
Oh, right.
And I think it's about. I think it might be about Nadine and Chloe or something like that. Or is Nadine's one of the characters in Uncharted? I can't keep all the characters straight in these fucking Naughty Dog games. But no, is Nadine in The Last of Us? Now I got to look this up because
no, Nadine's not in The Last of Us.
Okay, so Lost Legacy Wiki. Let's see what it says. So yeah, it came out August 2017. That's probably why I missed it. First of all, is because I wasn't playing games at that time for a few months. I was doing other stuff. But it came out August 2017. It is a standalone game, and it is based on Nadine. That's right. She's the black chick. And then Chloe, who we all know. Nadine was played by Laura Bailey, who more recently played Abby in The Last of Us Part 2. So yeah, I'd like to check that out. I will. I own it. I think I did buy it. I just haven't played it. I don't know why. Chris has no idea what it is, though, so.
Yeah. I think, when I said DLC, I guess that's what I thought it was at the time, because it looked like, oh, yeah, okay, so it's just like it's more of a standalone DLC kind of thing, right? Because it's just,
which is what Sony's been doing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, because it's still based on Uncharted 4. Like, it's still the engine and everything.
Right, exactly. It's Sony's been doing this a lot they did it with, Infamous First Light and other games where there's just standalone content. They're going to do it with Miles Morales on PS5. Yeah. So, yeah, this is not super unusual for them, but I don't know. It is a weird hole in my gaming catalog that I have to ameliorate at some point, but it's just not going to happen anytime soon. There's just too many other things to play. The thing that's really frustrating me right now, it's not frustrating me literally, it's frustrating my ability to play games, is that I have to play stuff for knockback, and that's like half of my gaming time. I wouldn't necessarily want to play BioShock 2 right now, but I have to for the show. So I'll come right out and say it. I'm a CBD user. I believe in its efficacy, and I recommend it to folks for a myriad of solvable problems like sleeplessness and anxiety. CBD, or cannabidiol, comes from the marijuana plant, but it's not the substance that gets you stoned. That's THC, and that's great too. But CBD is an awesome way to feel better and live your life without being high or encumbered. And the best way you can take CBD is with Feels' CBD oil. Feels CBD is a completely legal, liquefied solution that can help you with feelings of stress and anxiety, an inability to sleep well, and even persistent physical aches and pains. CBD is becoming such a popular phenomenon because it really, truly works. And as a paying Feels customer, I can tell you that their tincture has helped put my mind at ease and get a good night's sleep on far more than one occasion. Better yet, if you take it before you sleep like I sometimes do, you won't wake up with a hangover. Feels doesn't hit you like that. It helps, not hinders. If you'd like to try Feels CBD for yourself, simply head to feels.com/symbols. That's feals.com/SYMBOLS. To explore your options and get 50% off your first order when you subscribe. Feels members get their CBD in a discreet box delivered directly to your door, with detailed instructions and recommendations for newbies. And if you're not sure which version of Feels product you want to go with, you can talk to real live support that will help guide you to what works best for your particular ailment. For real friends, Feels CBD is a great product, so give it a try. Head to feels.com/symbols to sign up today and get 50% off your first order. Again, that's feels.com/symbols. All right, Chris, let's get into the news finally.
Yeah.
An hour plus into the show.
Hey, there's not much, man.
No, there's not much. So that's why I wanted to have some fun at the beginning. But number one, this is a big piece of news. Reliable sources are reporting that Sony is anticipating high demand for PlayStation 5 at launch, effectively doubling its production efforts in an attempt to potentially reach a staggering 10 million units to be sold through the first quarter of 2021. Japanese newspaper Nikkei reports in its English language Asian review that Sony is, quote, preparing to increase output of upcoming gaming devices by as much as 50%, end quote. Nikkei's report continues, stating that Sony has increased its PS5 orders from 6 million units to 9 million. Bloomberg reports similar news, stating Sony is aiming for more like 10 million units through its fiscal year, as the corporation is seeing increased demand for PS5 in light of COVID, an unexpected turn in what appeared and still appears to be an economically devastating year for most companies. However, Sony might have filed these amendments too late, and it's unclear if these production partners can meet demand. Sony has reportedly already ordered 10 million DualSense controllers through its fiscal year. Production of PlayStation 5 is already well underway. The first console rolled off assembly lines in June. And Sony thinks it could create 5 million by September and perhaps 5 million more before December, though, due to logistical and travel delays, many of those later consoles won't find their way to consumers until 2021. This I'm a little puzzled by, Chris, because how do they know what demand is when they haven't accepted pre-orders yet? This is the big mystery to me. What are they reading that they're seeing? Like, what data do they see where they're like, we have to increase production 50%? That's a lot. I don't know. Do you think 10 million will be enough?
I think so, honestly. Like, I think obviously the economy and like just, I feel like everything's just in a state where people really aren't necessarily in the best of places to spend money on like high-end luxury items. And I think that'll probably, weirdly enough, be pretty favorable for people trying to get their hands on these things. I don't know if they'll be able to make that many systems though, unless they're launching in December, which is like really terrible.
Yeah, so they said 5 million by September. So those are going to be probably the first phalanx of this. They'll send them to the States, they'll send them to Europe, some to Japan, and then maybe 5 million more produced by the end of December. But they have to get them to market, and that's going to be complicated. We're experiencing that with in a small way with our manufacturer of Twin Breaker, PlayAsia, where they shipped all of our games out in June, and they're still stuck in customs in a lot of places. Like, a lot of people still have not received them. And so I think bigger companies have ways to circumvent this, but there's going to be complications getting these consoles to market. I still think the biggest thing that's going to drive demand is obviously price, and we just don't know yet. So until they get that information out, I don't know why they're assuming this, unless Chris, we can read into it that Sony's got the price really low. And if that's the case, then they would want to manufacture as much of them as possible because they're going to sell. If they can get the price to something unfathomable, like $399, $449, which I think is just way too cheap, then I can understand why they can be like, well, this thing's obviously going to sell. We got it down to the same price as the PS4, not adjusted for inflation. But I don't think that's the case. That's the big confusion for me is I'm like, how do they know? How do they know that? I don't know. And if the price is too high, I don't know that it's going to sell as well as they think it's going to. So anyway, the fiscal year ends in March of 2021. So 10 million should be on the market by that point. That is, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to do it. I don't know if that's going to satiate demand, but we have to see what the demand for the Xbox is as well. So we will keep a close eye on that, but nice reporting from Nikai and from Bloomberg. Thank you. All right, let's get into some Ubisoft stuff. Number 2, Ubisoft has officially revealed Far Cry 6. Yeah. After the game's existence leaked days prior, Far Cry 6 will come to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 on February 18th, early next year. And if you purchase Far Cry 5 on PS4, you'll be able to upgrade to PS5 for no additional fee. Naturally, there will be a series of special editions in the physical release for both consoles that will also obviously be available digitally. Far Cry 6 takes place on the fictional island of Yara, which seems to be modeled after Cuba in some way. The game's antagonist, always an important feature of Far Cry, is named Anton Castillo, a dictator and warlord played by none other than Giancarlo Esposito, who you would know best as Gus Fring in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Players will be able to choose whether they're male or female, and it otherwise sounds like Far Cry taking over territory, clearing out bases, going after the baddies. As the name suggests, Far Cry 6 is a 6th core Far Cry game, though it's the 14th overall release in the franchise, one that began back in 2004 under the direction of none other than Crytek. When Ubisoft acquired the rights to the franchise in the mid-aughts, it brought it to the mainstream, most notably with 2012's Far Cry 3, widely considered the best entry in the series, though I disagree. The last mainline Far Cry game was Far Cry 5, which I do think is the best. Launched in 2018 with a standalone expansion called New Dawn, launched in 2019. Chris, what do you think about this game?
I like Giancarlo Esposito a lot.
So I know you do.
It was really cool seeing him. That was pretty cool. I'm excited about it, but at the same time, like I am. Far Cry is weird for me because I really only liked Far Cry 3. That was really the only one that really made me want to sink my teeth into it. It was the only one that really captivated me enough to finish it. So I don't really. I hope this one is that again, but I don't know if it will be, based on some of the changes that they've made since 3.
Yeah, well, what have they done to the series that you haven't liked since 3? Or what about 3 made it stand out to you?
I think 3 stood out both like in comparison to its previous games and in comparison to its, follow-ups, because it had a strong villain, but it also had like a hero that was also a character.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think like the second they started going into, you could be a male and female and you're like a mute, and it's kind of like you're playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds almost, and you're just kind of customizing your guy, and then he doesn't say anything, and or if he does, it's very minimal, and you just don't really get a sense of what your character is, because Far Cry is not really a game that's enough of an RPG to really get away with that. I feel like it's more or less you're running around, you're liberating outposts, you're killing people, you're hunting animals, but it's not really like a narrative RPG. So you can't really get away with this like silent protagonist or this idea that like, oh, hey, I'm just gonna, not react to anything that anybody says. I feel like it's really jarring, especially when Far Cry 3 just did it so well. Like Jason was like annoying, but he was also like there, and you could get like invested in it, and it was almost like you were like watching this insane story through someone else's eyes. And I feel like they got a little bit too focused on trying to make you the protagonist, when that really only works for very specific kinds of games.
It's funny you say that, because Sean wrote into us on Patreon and said, hey, CNC, I was intrigued by the Far Cry 6 trailer and was wondering what different approaches do you hope Ubisoft takes with this addition to the Far Cry series. I hope they bring back a voice for your protagonist. In the last 2 games, your character was a mute, with only customizing the look of the characters. Yeah, it's funny you say that, Chris, because other people feel this way as well. And that was really something when I went back and played Far Cry 3 Classic on PS4 for Knockback and platinumed it. I had platinumed Far Cry 3 back in the day, but hadn't played it in some time. That stood out to me. I was like, I totally forgot that Brody or whatever his name is a character. He's like a real person. He's not an avatar in some way. And I think that's going to be hard for them to institute with Far Cry 6 because now they're giving you gender roles and stuff like that, which is fine. But I think with a game like this, you have to choose what you're going to do because the game is always going to be about the checkboxes. That's why Far Cry always speaks to me is I just enjoy and I wouldn't enjoy it all the time, but in the staggered nature they come out, I just enjoy going through the motions, clearing the map, clearing the strongholds and climbing the radio towers and all of that. And I don't like that they've gone to this Cuba analog for this game. It looks like I feel like we've had the tropics a few times now. The US was cool. I would have loved for them to go to Canada or a foreign country, like a real foreign country. They usually replicate Montana, I think was actually the first like real place that they did that wasn't like supposed to be a wink and a nod to something else. Like when they did Tibet kind of in Far Cry 4, or they did like the the Pacific Islands in Far Cry 3. And they did Africa in Far Cry 2. So I'm not crazy about the setting, but I am really looking forward to seeing Giancarlo Esposito in the game. And I'll be all over this bad boy for sure when it comes out. So February 18th, PS4 and PS5, free upgrade from PS4 to PS5 if you don't get your hands on the new console in time or you can't afford it. And we will look forward to that. Number 3, in addition to revealing Far Cry 6, Ubisoft also announced the release date for Watch Dogs Legion. Watch Dogs Legion, which was revealed at E3 2019 and which was originally slated to launch in March earlier this year, will now come out on October 29th this fall. Under development at Ubisoft Toronto, the team responsible for Far Cry 5 and who worked in a support role on Rainbow Six Siege, Assassin's Creed Unity, and others, Watch Dogs Legion is the third game in the Watch Dogs franchise and the first to take place outside of the United States. While 2013's Watch Dogs took place in Chicago and 2016's took place in San Francisco, Watch Dogs Legion takes place in London. What do you make of this game?
I don't know much about it, but I remember the last time I saw it, and the last time I paid attention to it, which was presumably E3 2019, I remember being kind of impressed by what I saw. They had like this system where you could sort of play as whoever you wanted, and they had their own like specific combat models and skills and animations, and there was like a permadeath system that I thought was really cool. Assuming that's still in there, I would hope it is, because I'm pretty sure it was really highly appreciated. I think that kind of approach to Watch Dogs would make it stand out enough to warrant being checked out a little bit. I like permadeath in games in general, especially when you can like, when you can just like take control of somebody else and sort of pick up where you left off and you're a different person and you have to get used to this stuff. And it's like, it's a fun concept that I think lends itself really well to kind of like a hacking sandbox. So I'm interested to see more of it. I don't normally get that excited about Watch Dogs or, Assassin's Creed or really any Ubisoft title, but I have my eye on this one at the very least.
Yeah, I'm a little different than you in that, like, I can't get excited about Watch Dogs. I don't know why. Like, it's always been on my mind. I played the first one a little bit. It really was half-baked, I thought. The second one was supposed to be really good, but no one really played it. So it was surprising to even see another one, but obviously Ubisoft likes to biannualize their games at the very least, and so they're trying to do that with Watch Dogs. And I wouldn't be afraid of that core system disappearing. I would assume that was the cause of the delay, was actually making it work better. It is really interesting, but it also turns me off because I want to it sounds like a lot, like that sounds like a lot to manage. You have like the old woman and the tech worker and the bank robber. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel, and I also feel lame jumping into Watch Dogs now when I hadn't played the first two all the way through. That's a me thing, but I just feel like I feel like I need that prologue before I get into it. So it's a game that's there. I assume we're going to be busy with some other stuff around the time this game comes out. I know I will be anyway. Like Miles Morales is going to come out right around this time and others. So I don't think this is going to be a game I play right away. I'll wait till it's cheaper, but it has a release date, October 29th. I know a lot of people are excited about it.
Yeah.
The other game that they talked about is number 4 here. Ubisoft also revealed the release date for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You can look for that next entry in the long-running Assassin's Creed franchise on November 17th, and it will come to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. It's worth noting that this release date likely confirms the release date of one or both next-gen consoles, as Ubisoft traditionally loves supporting consoles at launch, and you may recall that Assassin's Creed Unity was a launch game for PlayStation 4 back in 2013. I don't think that's right. I think it was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. That was the launch game.
Yeah, you're
Valhalla is the 12th core Assassin's Creed game and the first to take place in a Norse setting. The last core releases were in 2017 and 2018 when Origins and Odyssey released. It was here that Ubisoft decided to tap the brakes just a bit on its largely annualized releases for the series, one that began back in 2007. Indeed, 2008 and 2019 are the only 2 years since then that there wasn't a mainline Assassin's Creed game launched, which is fucking crazy. Are you looking for? I don't care about this at all. I'm just being honest. I don't care about Assassin's Creed. I just can't get into it. What are you thinking about this one?
Yeah, I think I'm largely with you. It's just I've seen so much of it at this point that it borders on like Madden for me, or like FIFA, where it's like that's a game for people, I guess, and it comes out every year, and I'm not missing much if I skip this year. It's whatever, And I've just felt that.
Yeah.
I felt that way where it's like, oh, I'll get the next year. I felt that way for the last like decade. So like obviously that tactic doesn't really. That sales tactic isn't really working on me, but it works for other people, I guess. So, it's whatever.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's a very whatever thing. I know that they've refined this series a lot, and I really do believe when people tell me like you'll actually like it if you play it now. It's not like Assassin's Creed 3 or whatever, where it was really stiff, and I really wanted to like that game. That was the last one I played. So that was in 2012, so 8 years ago almost. But there's just nothing alluring to me about this. There's nothing mouth-watering about this game to me. So we have to see. I want to keep an open mind with Assassin's Creed, but there's just too many other games. And this is the series I always use as an example of letting go. I just got to let go. I'm not going to play Assassin's Creed. There's just too many other things to worry about. So we will move on. A lot of more Ubisoft news, though. Number 5, Ubisoft made a bunch of release date related announcements and showed off new gameplay for its various titles, sure. But there was yet again a conspicuous absence noted by many: Skull and Bones. You may recall that Skull and Bones was revealed at E3 back in 2017 and was being developed by Ubisoft's Singaporean outfit. But according to a report on Video Games Chronicle, the game is being rebooted, hence its apparently temporary disappearance. The staggering reality is that this game was originally supposed to launch in 2018. So by now, it was clear it was experiencing substantial issues. As VGC notes, Ubisoft even planned to have a beta in 2018, which also never materialized. The big change, apparently, is that Skull and Bones, which is inspired entirely by Assassin's Creed's forays into ship navigation and combat, won't be a premium paid-for game anymore, but instead a live game, in quotes, that, quote, will now feature a persistent game world with quests, characters, and storylines that will drastically evolve and change over time based on collective actions of the community, end quote. VGC draws a comparison between this and the likes of The Division 2, which is paid for up front and receives far fewer but more substantial and paid updates. Skull and Bones will apparently go in a different direction to appeal to potential Ubisoft customers that otherwise wouldn't play the game, wouldn't play yet another checkbox game. As such, the game has a new director, Elizabeth Pellin, who has been with Ubisoft for many years, and who most notably wrote and directed 13 in 2003, which was an FPS based on a Belgian graphic novel published by Ubisoft. 13 is actually getting re-released, as people might remember.
Yeah.
I think either later this year or next year, getting remade. I don't care about this game, but I find it peculiar that they're kind of changing directions with it towards what seems to be, according to VGC, they don't really say it, but it seems like it's kind of somewhere between a persistent game and a real MMO. What do you make of this direction for the game? It's a little disappointing because I really did like the ship-to-ship stuff in Assassin's Creed 3. That was like the really appealing part of that to me, and I know that they really refined that later on. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I remember seeing this game at E3, like when I was there, and I remember being like, oh, look, I thought it was Assassin's Creed, and I thought it was like some kind of like, I thought they were doing like some weird cheeky thing where they were like, here's Skull and Bones, and it was like a what is it, like a code name or something? And they were going to be like, oh, this is Assassin's Creed Pirates, yeehaw, or whatever the hell.
Pirates yeehaw.
Yeah, Pirates yeehaw.
Yes,
I don't
indeed.
know. I think it's peculiar that they acknowledge in a way how like reductive or repetitive their portfolio is, where they're like, oh, well, maybe to not have another checkbox game, but it's like you also have live service games. So like I don't know really what the reason is to once again compete with your own product.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, what's that Rare game? I can't think of the name of it.
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves. It seems like that game really found itself and found an audience after it came out. It looked like it was kind of DOA for a little while. And maybe they took some inspiration from that and kind of the emphasis on cooperation and competition. I don't know. I don't like the name. Just speaking of the name, I think the name sucks.
Yeah, it's really generic.
Yeah, it's super generic, but I don't know. They Ubisoft doesn't have the best names for their games. Like even games like For Honor, I'm like, I don't know about that. That's no good. But clearly people like it. But we did get a letter here from Juicy or UC. Let's call him UC.
UC.
Ludolin. Oh, my mom's calling me. Hold on a sec.
Oh,
hello. Good. I'm recording. What's going on? Oh, it's The Witch. It's on Netflix. Yeah. All right. Yeah. You'll like it. Enjoy it. All right. Love you too, Mom. All right. Bye. No, it's okay. Bye. Mom wanted to know a movie recommendation. So God bless her. All right. UC Ludolin wrote into us, or Lundolin, and said, hello, C Squared. Greetings from Finland. Is Splinter Cell ever coming back? It's been 7 years since the last game, Blacklist. And since then, we have only heard vague answers from Ubisoft representatives regarding the franchise's future. I'm a fan of the series, and if Splinter Cell would be totally gone, it would suck, but in the end, I would be fine with it. But what really annoys me is that Ubisoft keeps referencing the Splinter Cell in all of their other games. Easter eggs in Far Cry and Assassin's Creed, Sam Fisher actually showing up in both the new Ghost Recon games, and now, most recently, he is in this weird Tom Clancy's All-Star Battle Royale mobile game shit. I bet Tom is rolling in his grave right now. Well, he sold all the shit to Ubisoft. Ubisoft has to know that these appearances create a negative reaction in Splinter Cell fans, but they keep doing it. So what say you? Would you like to see a new Splinter Cell game, and what would be the chances of that happening? Keep up the good work and stay safe. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, my hopes are really low. I don't think that they're really ever going to go back to it because stealth as a genre is kind of like RTSs where like just people really aren't making them anymore and it doesn't appeal to people because it's not fast and ADD enough. I don't know why they do this. I think they think it's like honoring this series, but it surely, like, your average person who doesn't know about Splinter Cell is going to play these other games and they're going to be like, I don't get this reference. I don't know what this is. I don't know who this person is. 3 green lights on a person's head, whatever. Who cares? Is that a stealth suit? Give me that. I want to download that. I want that skin. You know, they're probably not thinking about Splinter Cell at all. And the people who are seeing that stuff in those other games and thinking like, oh, that's Splinter Cell, like, that's obviously infuriating. So, like, I don't even know why they even bother to do these little cheeky little winks and nods if they know that the reaction is negative and they're not saying a damn thing about it. Maybe they have like some crazy surprise set up for like, I don't know, 3 years from now, but I'm with you. It's frustrating. It's irritating. Seeing him in that mobile game is just so sad.
But I don't get it. There does seem to be some demand for it, but I guess they would know better than anyone. It reminds me a little bit of SOCOM with Sony, where it feels like there's like a fan base asking for this. I don't know why you're not delivering it, but maybe people wouldn't play it and wouldn't buy it. But I agree with you. Putting Sam Fisher in some stuff it just tantalizes people. It could indicate that they do have something to say. I was actually a little surprised that they had nothing to say about Splinter Cell at this Ubisoft event that just happened last weekend, where all these announcements came from. They are doing another one in a few months, and so maybe we'll see it there. But I didn't think I realized it was quite that long between Blacklist and now. There's no current gen Splinter Cell games.
Yeah.
That's kind of it's kind of crazy.
Not a single one, and even Blacklist wasn't really all that good. I don't know, man. It just don't. If you don't want to do anything with this series, then don't continuously reference it. You know, that would just be one. That would be my preference. Is just don't stoke the flames of something that you don't intend to light.
Yeah, well said. And I also say that it when they inevitably bring it back, it makes it more powerful if he wasn't just hanging around as a character in these various mobile games and stuff. Like, just put Splinter Cell away, and you'll find a team eventually that will want to revive it, and then there will be a real big explosion when you do, because you're not dangling Sam Fisher in Assassin's Creed fucking Easter eggs and stuff like that. It is a little weird, and I know you're such a big Splinter Cell fan. I do feel bad for folks like you. There's so many series like that for me, so I can totally relate. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you for writing in about that. I knew that Chris would have something to say about that. So those are all the game announcements of consequence, but there is more about Ubisoft in this Ubisoft-centric episode of the show, I guess.
Yeah.
Number 6, it's not all good news for Ubisoft. Far from it. As you know from listening to our show, Ubisoft has been incredibly aggressive in purging its global organization of elements that are accused of all sorts of impropriety, both generally inappropriate and sexual in nature. Website Games Industry International reports that as such, Ubisoft has parted ways with 3 more key members of its management. The biggest axing is that of Chief Creative Officer Serge Hascott, who served in that role for 13 years and before that was Ubisoft's content director and studio manager going back to the late 90s. It's well known within Ubisoft that Hascott is extremely powerful, essentially having final say on any game being greenlit or rejected. A report from French newspaper Liberation notes that Hascott has, quote, the most toxic behavior in the whole business, end quote, which is a fucking huge quote. In addition, Yanis Milat has been released. He is the managing director and CEO of all of Ubisoft's Canadian studios, a position he's held since 2006. For 2 years prior, he was president of Ubisoft's Canadian studios, and before that, he was producer with the Prince of Persia and Rayman series going back to 2001. Perhaps the most interesting exit of all, though, is that of Cecile Cornette, the global head of PR. Global head of HR, that should read. She has a low public profile, yet is obviously at the nexus of Ubisoft's incompetent HR operation and has since been jettisoned. Yves Guillemot himself will be filling in as chief creative officer while a replacement is hired for that position. Yeah, this is crazy, man. I mean, I don't think people are really thinking this through about how substantial this is.
Yeah.
And Ubisoft, so Serge Hascott is like basically Yves Guillemot's right-hand man. And again, the quote from Liberation, the French newspaper, is his behavior is, quote, the most toxic behavior in the whole business, end quote. The HR operative, Cecile Cornette, being released is obvious because obviously HR, headed by Cecile, dropped the ball on all these accusations. And then apparently the guy, so these are not just randos. The head of your HR, your global HR operation, the head of all of your Canadian studios, Ubisoft is largely located in Canada, and then basically your chief creative officer who greenlights all of your games, all of them released from service. So imagine what it's like underneath them. I think we've only begun to scratch the surface of this situation with Ubisoft. And I wonder, Chris, do you think it's Ubisoft being overly aggressive in catching this and that this is endemic to everywhere? Do you think there's something unique about Ubisoft's culture that has it? Like, we don't really hear much about anything going on at EA. Is EA just like a better run company? Is Activision just better run than Ubisoft? Because I have a lot of respect for Ubisoft, but this seems so peculiar because it seems like it's totally endemic to their entire structure. And I don't know why we're not hearing more about this from lots of other big publishers.
Yeah, no, I don't think that Ubisoft is uniquely toxic. I do think Ubisoft is uniquely self-conscious, though. I think they're very aware of like their status in the industry. I think they're very well aware of. They always struck me as very, maybe altruistic isn't the right word, but they always felt like of the big publishers, they always felt to be the one that had like some smidgen of like humanity there. Like there was some like level of personality at Ubisoft that I think doesn't really show in Activision and EA. And I think it's maybe a bit of an overcorrection, perhaps. I don't know the ins and outs of like why these people really ultimately got the boot, but I would imagine that there's some semblance of like, hey, you know, we gotta clean house. You know, they like to take responsibility. They're like, all right. The fact that they delayed all of their games at like completely out of schedule, you know, a year ago, right? Was it about a year ago that happened?
Yeah, and then they also had delays due to COVID to just give their teams more time. So they're very dev friendly.
Yeah, like they don't strike me as a company that would just like I mean, I know obviously all companies are like money grubbing technically, but like I mean they strike me as a company that would very very easily choose to have like a better product than just like push something at the door. Whereas like Activision and EA doesn't really seem like that. So I do think it's just some level of like maybe the personality of Ubisoft being very conscious to these issues and maybe wanting to put a more of a sincere foot forward in stopping this kind of shit. I do think there's a lot of sincerity in it.
Yeah, it seems like it's the right thing to do. I think that the buck has to stop somewhere. And you know, like Harry Truman used to say, was it Harry Truman? Or, the buck stops here. And I'm surprised the buck didn't stop with Yves Guillemot. Like, as the man in charge of the operation, he might be the one that really should be going too. That's the one thing that stands out to me. I have no issue with him. I've never met him. He's never done anything to me. I'm just saying, if like your right-hand man, your head of Canadian studios, and your HR lead are all fucked up, these are people that directly report to you. So it seems like it either had to be them or him in some way. And I wonder how much further down it trickles. And then I also wonder, to your point about EA, Activision, Bethesda, others, is there any impropriety going on at these places? We know about stuff going on at like Riot Games and stuff like that, which is not really in our ecosystem. But are we going to start hearing more from them?
Yeah.
Or are these places a little more buttoned up? Because a lot of the stuff was happening too, apparently at IGN, and I worked there, and I had no idea this stuff was going on, although a lot of it was happening after I left. So it's easy to imagine the rank and file are just going about their business and have no idea unless they're victimized by these people in some various ways.
Yeah.
And again, it's all accusations. It's not, none of it's proven or whatever. So I want to be clear about that. But we do have an interesting letter though from Big Swinging Rick, and he wrote into us, and this is a really fascinating topic here. He says, "Hey lads, how do you feel about the controversy surrounding Ubisoft and the seeming lack of ownership over it? I'm not a mainstream games media hater by any stretch, but it has rubbed me the wrong way a lot this week. To see massive media dumps of preview coverage for Watch Dogs, Hyperscape, and Assassin's Creed, as well as coverage of the Ubi Forward event, neither Ubisoft themselves nor any of the outlets covering them have addressed this in any satisfying way. The hype for new games has overshadowed the nasty shit underneath, and games media continues to basically advertise and promote the games rather than call the company out on its bullshit. Love everything you do." I think this is an interesting point worth considering, Big Swinging Rick. And I want to know, Chris, if these kinds of improprieties are being spoken about at the time that Ubisoft has this event planned. They did, Rick, to be fair, release a series of letters on their blog talking about all the things that they're going to do. They did also say they weren't going to address this at their event before the event happened, so we didn't have any expectation of that. But Chris, does the media have some sort of role to play in saying, like, listen, we're not covering these games? Because this wasn't only, to Rick's point, this wasn't only like saying Assassin's Creed comes out here, Watch Dogs comes out here. There were preview builds sent to people and they played the game. Mm-hmm. And then they wrote hands-on previews. So they are advertorial sort of content being done as Ubisoft is suffering from all these accusations. So do you think that they had some role to play in saying, maybe we don't want to cover this stuff, maybe we're not going to talk about it? Or is the covenant made with the audience and saying, like, we're going to talk about the controversy, but also here are the games? What do you think about all that?
Oh, man. That's a tricky situation to navigate. I think objectively, if I were looking at everything from like a bird's eye view, I would say, yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing coverage or especially advertisory coverage of the event. But I also know that it's far easier to just do that. You know, like if I had the choice between, you know, having an easy month and just doing the stuff that I'm expected to do, like, I'll just do whatever, let's do the coverage, whatever. But there's no question to me that the right thing to do would probably be to at least cover the accusations as well and cover the kind of turmoil at the company. At the very least, it's your duty as media to really do that, especially if you call yourself games journalism, you know what I mean? I think that's really, you gotta be uncomfortable sometimes. And you gotta be like, hey, this is a real thing that's happening. And hey, Assassin's Creed Valhalla it sure looks like Assassin's Creed, but like also like, hey, what about this? What's going on at your company, dude?
Yeah, I think Rick, that you're missing some things, because I do think that some of the media has been writing about this before Ubisoft even talked about it. I think that, to be fair, I think outlets like Kotaku were really pushing this story behind the scenes, and it's something that should be talked about. I think you have to contextualize all of it. Like, Watch Dogs is being made at Ubisoft Toronto. Ubisoft Toronto is like apparently the epicenter of a lot of this stuff. So you can contextualize it in your coverage of the game and in any way that you feel it fits. It might not fit in the preview coverage of Watch Dogs Legion when you're going hands-on, but maybe you can have some sort of supplemental content so people know what they're getting themselves into. But I think that we don't have a full picture of everything that's happening. And as we discussed earlier, I think the other stuff from other publishers are going to come out, and you're going to realize, unfortunately, that perhaps this issue is a little more endemic. And so it's not so much a Ubisoft problem as it is a games media problem. And we have a lot to fix in that regard. And a lot of the stuff you're reading is disgusting. I mean, you're hearing about stuff as bad as rape, straight up rape, not just comments, not just hitting on people, but sexual assault and things like that. And so it is part of the conversation. It has to be part of the conversation. And I think whether or not you feel like the media outlets that you read or peruse did a nice job is entirely up to you to figure out. All right, number 7. A couple of weeks ago, we discussed on this very show that Sony was reportedly showing interest in purchasing the Hong Kong-based games company Liu Technology. This is substantial because Liu owns a number of moderately sized game developers that, if purchased, would join PlayStation's first-party family. This acquisition could also potentially give Sony a foothold in the emerging Chinese market, which it is already aggressively making a play for. However, reporting from CNBC indicates that they're being outflanked in this acquisition by none other than Tencent, which continues its aggressive attempt to purchase gaming entities around the world. Tencent and Liu have entered an exclusive agreement to work out a deal, meaning that no other company can negotiate with them, including Sony. This exclusive period will last for 3 months, at which point, if no deal is struck, Sony can continue negotiating to purchase the company, if it's still interested. Liu's biggest holdings include Digital Extremes, Splash Damage, and Athlon Games, and it owns other smaller studios too. Digital Extremes is a Canadian studio well known for its successful online game Warframe, while Splash Damage is a British studio that made Brink back in 2011, but which has more recently been working in a support role on the Gears of War franchise on behalf of Microsoft and the Coalition. Athlon Games is probably the most interesting holding, however, as it was made specifically to deal with the Lord of the Rings related games and has substantial rights in that arena, which could prove mighty profitable. Not looking good for Sony on this acquisition. I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing. I don't know that you need these teams. I don't know where Splash Damage and Digital Extremes necessarily fit in.
Yeah.
Athlon Games would be nice because they own the Lord of the Rings licensing agreements, but it looks like Tencent has basically negotiated 3 months of exclusive negotiation rights with Liu, and it looks like that's going to happen. So we have to let go of that idea that they're going to be the next expansion of first party. So there's that. Number 8. It was just weeks ago that mega popular developer Bungie revealed its plans for Destiny 2's next set of content, but it has already moved to delay the very first chapter. Beyond Light, which was the first of the 3 expansions revealed alongside 2021's The Witch Queen and 2022's Lightfall, will no longer come out on September 22nd as originally planned, but instead on November 10th. Word comes by way of a brief blog post from Bungie, where they note in part that they are, quote, doing what's best for the game and moving the launch date, end quote, in order to meet their high expectations for quality. It appears that COVID may be to blame, as the post does bring up the virus, but the good news is that the current season of arrivals will now extend to November 10th, when Beyond Light will turn the page and begin the series' next chapter. Delays aren't surprising, however, especially at this juncture, as a recent GDC survey notes that a third of all polled developers noted that their current project is experiencing delays. Chris, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's disappointing, but it's not something that I don't understand. I was actually playing Destiny 2 earlier today. I finally got through a lot of the work that I had to do, so I just had some time to sink into it, and it's still fun. It's really cool the way that they're evolving that game, and the way that it continues to be like completely different every time I jump into it, and like things are happening, and it actually feels like something substantial is on the horizon, and that's a really good feeling to have in a game that's about to have like a really cool next chapter. So I mean, you know, take their time, man. I don't think I've ever been against a delay really outside of just like, oh man, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, delays can't make games worse, and
yeah,
I think we have to start reading a little bit into these delays though about when they're being pushed to. This November 10th, November 17th region that a lot of games seem to be now flocking around. I think they're letting the cat out of the bag a little bit about when these consoles are coming out. That might have something to do with it. You know?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it also is just like, I mean, my bet was always on November 10th to the 20th that it would be, you know, in that span of time. Maybe like the 23rd, if you want to get frisky. But I really do think that that's like the safest bet anyway, just based on how things have, just how release dates for consoles have transpired over the last several years or several decades. I feel like that's a pretty safe place to place a bet.
Yeah, you got to get it out before Black Friday. That's conventional wisdom. If not for the consoles, then for the games you're going to buy. But I think if you're a Bungie, you know, just reading between the lines, reading the tea leaves, if you release your first chapter of this new kind of approach to Destiny 2, this next renaissance that they're going to do, then do you want it out in September where people play it, you have a little bit of room to breathe, but then it's quickly overshadowed by all of the next gen stuff? Or do you want to be part of the next gen stuff? You know, and I feel like that's gotta be part of the conversation, is just being in that mix because of the backwards compatibility and all this kind of stuff, that you might want to it might behoove you to just be part of that conversation, since the slate's going to get erased in November and you might be forgotten about in some way. I mean, no, you're not going to be forgotten about with Destiny, but I think it just benefits them. So there might be two benefits there to them, where they get more time. COVID's obviously being a disruptive factor in a lot of games. And then they're also ready to go around the console's launch. Can't wait to see when these consoles are actually going to launch. We'll find out soon enough. Number 9, Pro Evolution Soccer, the long-running Konami developed and published soccer series that began way back in 1995, is going for something just a little bit different this year. It's PES's 25th anniversary, so you'd expect something big, but you're not going to get it quite yet. While Konami works on Pro Evolution Soccer's next-gen offering, which will launch in 2021, this year's product has suffered. Instead of releasing a whole new game with some new tweaks and updates, Konami is instead opting to release PES 2021 as a so-called season update, in quotes, though it'll be a standalone title at a budget price of £25. It will launch on September 15th on PlayStation 4 and elsewhere, with PES 2022, the next-gen only offering, will apparently be out around this time in 2021. Pro Evolution Soccer has long lived in the shadows of EA's popular FIFA franchise, but is nonetheless released annually every year since 1996, when it was known as Goalstorm, World Soccer Winning 11, ISS, and other titles before becoming PES in 2001. Since last year, it's now known as eFootball Pro Evolution Soccer, though, for some reason. So there's that. I've always been fascinated by that series because it's trucked along as the second offering. It has a player base, but it doesn't have a lot of the licenses, and I don't know why it's so popular. I remember when it was called Winning 11, I always thought that was an awesome name. That's the Japanese name, but I loved that name, Winning 11. All right, Chris, number 10 is a wrap up. Website Gamatsu reports that card-fueled strategy game Nowhere Profit is coming to PlayStation 4 on July 30th. Oh. That roguelite Xenogon is coming to PS4 later this year. Ooh. That beautiful 2D action game Eastern Exorcist, which looks great, is coming to PS4 at an unknown point in the future. That action RPG King of Seas is coming to PS4 in the fall of 2020. That action RPG Gripper is coming to PS4 in 2021. That beat-em-up Clan N is coming to PS4 on August 16th. That visual novel Necro Barista comes to PS4 in 2021. That free-to-play battle royale game Spellbreak is coming to PS4 later in 2020. That racing game Lost... Yeah, I know. I saw that. I was like, eh. That racing game Lost Wing is coming to PS4 on July 28th. And that strategy RPG Banner of the Maid is coming to PS4 on August 12th. Website Push Square reports that cute battle royale game Fall Guys is coming to PS4 on August 4th. That the Ubisoft battle royale we discussed last week, Hyperscape, is indeed coming to PS4 this summer. And and the Dirt 5 will get a free update on PS5 if you buy it on PS4. And finally, trophies have popped up on the PlayStation Network indicating that both the remake of Ty the Tasmanian Tiger and a port of the Switch and PC exclusive Turok re-release that we were just talking about weeks ago are both incoming to PlayStation 4 imminently. Turok doesn't have a platinum trophy, which is fucking crazy and annoying as shit, but they're both apparently coming. Also, Chris, this news broke and people tweeted it at me right before we started. So it's worth bringing this up. Where is it? Here it is. NIS America, the publisher, the niche publisher, announced that its Danganronpa games are going to be taken off of PSN. So Danganronpa, another episode, Ultra Despair Girls on PS Vita, will be removed on August 31st. Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc for PS Vita, which is the first game, will be really taken off on September 4th. Along with Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair, also for Vita, will be taken off digitally.
Why?
I'll tell you in a second. Danganronpa V3, Killing Harmony, for Vita will be removed on the 25th of September, and Killing Harmony's PS4 iteration will be removed on the 25th. My assumption about this, and I tweeted this out, and it's actually getting retweeted and circulated a lot, although it is just an assumption, is that Spike Chunsoft, who is the developer of these games, is going to take over the publishing rights. When Danganronpa was released in America, NIS took a chance on it and helped make it big, but Spike Chunsoft is the IP holder. And so I imagine that it's up now, it's over, and they're going to re-release these games imminently under their own banner. And as I know from releasing a game now on PSN, it's a little more complicated than just changing who the publisher is in the back end. You basically have to republish the game. So that's what I assume is happening.
Right.
But they have not confirmed that yet. And it is a shame. But so if you want digital versions, especially of the PS Vita iterations of the Danganronpa games, you should act now. You can still buy them physically, I assume, although I don't think they've been manufactured in many years. I'm a big fan, as you guys know, of Danganronpa. I have not played the third one yet, so I can't speak to that. conspicuously absent from this, I noticed though, Chris, is that they don't bring up the PS4 version of Danganronpa 1 and 2, which were released together. And so I imagine that those might still be available, although the third one won't be available. So I don't know.
Weird.
I don't know what's happening here. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So that's late breaking news that I wanted to bring up to everyone. So again, if you're looking for Danganronpa on Vita, buy them now, because who knows when they will reappear, although I'm sure that they will reappear. What would be really fucked up is if they don't reappear and they port them, they're already ported, but they don't reappear for Vita, so they're just taken off the market. That would suck because those games are heavily identified with the handheld. So we will see what happens. Okay, Chris, no new game releases this week. I mean, there are games coming out, but Sony's still not publishing them, so I don't know what's going to happen to this segment, unfortunately. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. But in the meantime, I have 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to round out this episode from the audience. So let's jump back into the mailbag here and see what you sons of bitch have to say as we close out this episode of Sacred Symbols. Ollie G wrote into us, not Ali G, but Ollie G. He says, hello, Colin and Chris. I've become increasingly frustrated with the idea from Phil Spencer that generational exclusives should be a thing of the past. Xbox's approach is to be consumer friendly by their games being playable anywhere and that no one will be forced to upgrade to next gen. This sounds good, but at what cost? The cost of innovation? I'm happy that PlayStation promises a unique experience by upgrading to PS5. It just feels a lot more exciting and refreshing. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Should PlayStation make their games playable across a variety of systems? So what Ollie is referencing here, Chris, are a series of posts, one from Games Industry International, some gamesindustry.biz, B-I-Z, and the other from Xbox Wire itself. One is an interview with Phil Spencer and some other first-party heads. The other is written from Phil Spencer's point of view, called You Are the Future of Gaming. And he does say some weird stuff in this interview, so I feel like people should go check this out for themselves. But here's what he says to the Games Industry International website in part. So they're asking about kind of holding their games back and if it hurts them to be cross-generational. And here's what he says, quote, frankly, held back is a meme that gets created by people who are too caught up in the device competition. I just look at Windows. It's almost certain if the developer is building a Windows version of their game, then the most powerful and highest fidelity version is the PC version. You can even see that with some of our first-party console games going to PC, even from our competitors, that the richest version is the PC version. Yet, the PC ecosystem is the most diverse when it comes to hardware when you think about GPUs and CPUs from years ago that are still there. Yes, every developer is going to find a line and say that this is the hardware that I am going to support. But the diversity of hardware choice in PC has not held back the highest fidelity PC games on the market. The highest fidelity PC games rival anything that anyone has ever seen in video games. So this idea that developers don't know how to build games or a game engine or ecosystems that work across a set of hardware, there's proof in point in PC that shows that's not the case. That said, we're shipping Xbox Series X this year. I'm playing it every day at home, and it's going to be playing different than playing an Xbox One X. We should applaud the work that's going on with the SSD and the work that's going on with audio to pick some of our areas that Jim Ryan and Mark Cerny and the stuff with PlayStation is focused on. We should applaud load times and fidelity of scenes and frame rate and input latency and all these things that we focus on with the next generation. But that should not exclude people from being able to play. That's our point. How do we create an ecosystem where if you want to play an Xbox game, we're going to give you a way to play it? End quote. Pretty interesting stuff. And I'm really wondering if they're starting to play around with the idea of bringing their games to PlayStation, as I've been talking about. Mm-hmm. What is your opinion on this difference in philosophy and approach? Because Jim Ryan keeps reiterating with PlayStation 5, we are making games for this console. And we already know that they are. Yeah, Miles Morales, Ratchet and Clank, Demon's Souls, etc. Microsoft is saying the exact opposite, that they want to lower the barrier of entry so their games are playable in as many places as possible. Which route do you think is the better one to take?
I don't know. I think first of all, I just want to say that we'll all be, I think in 10 years time, or like even maybe like 10 to 12 years time, I think from now, we will be playing games in the way that games are working on in the Xbox ecosystem right now. Like I'm pretty confident that that's going to be the case. But whether or not this is another situation of maybe they're too early to this, that's also a possibility. I don't think it's wrong, but I do think there's a possibility that like they could be maybe a bit too early with this message. Because people ultimately do like care a lot about exclusives. They care a lot about like software that's going to compel them to buy new hardware. I think people are still going to buy new hardware regardless because new hardware is just fun for people. But that is a key thing. And I don't know, like, I have to assume that he knows a lot more than I do. You know what I mean? So, like, I find it hard to be like, oh, yeah, that's dumb. But I also feel like maybe it's a bit, you're jumping the gun a little bit too quick. I think you want to save this conversation for like 2024, you know, so somewhere like deep into the generation, not necessarily at the start when you're trying to generate hype for your new machine.
Yeah, it's interesting because these are just two different approaches, and Microsoft's approach to me reads much more like a games publisher that is giving you hardware options to play the games, while Sony's approach is as a hardware manufacturer that gives you games only playable on that console. And it's a matter of what you want. I think Ollie's point is kind of sound in the sense that if I can play my Xbox games on Xbox One, then why am I going to buy an Xbox Series X? And we already have answers as to why you would buy a PlayStation 5. It's not just for the next gen jump, but because there are games you can only play on it. So it is a rational thing to wonder, I think, like what is the point?
I think that's kind of the thing that he's trying to refute, is the idea that like a game can only be played on next generation hardware. The reality is that it can't, and he points to PC as proof of that, where there are games that take advantage of like the highest end PCs that you can still play on a computer that you got in 2010. You know what I mean? That's kind of the point I think that he's trying to make, where it's like you can still have a next generation experience that is like way, way better than you're going to get on the previous generation of consoles. But just because you don't have the money for a new console yet, or just because, you know, you might not necessarily, you know, be all that keen on dropping a bunch of money on a new console right when the generation launches, doesn't necessarily mean that you should be locked out of that experience as a baseline. And I think that's kind of the idea that he's going at. It's like, yeah, the Series X is going to be where you're going to get like premier like console next gen shit. PC is where you're going to go if you want like absurd, like way, way, way in advance, you know, fidelity, and way, way, way in advance like resolutions and stuff. But if you're still stuck on Xbox One X, or if you just bought an Xbox One X, it'd be pretty screwed up of you not to be able to play the newest Halo game just because you made an investment in this platform.
Right, but couldn't that argument be made for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 too? Like, you won't be able to play Ratchet and Miles Morales on your PS4.
Right.
And they would make the argument, because I tried to make the argument that maybe some of these games would come to PS4, and people refuted them pretty effectively, just saying like, even with Ratchet, the way that they were showing him going in between all these worlds and all the seamlessness, like, it's actually not possible on PS4. And probably isn't possible on Xbox Series X either because of the SSD. So I don't know. I know I always kid around being a Luddite and stuff, but I like you said, I don't know what Phil Spencer knows, but I feel like they're telegraphing themselves a little bit with buying all those studios. They're becoming a publisher, and that's fine. I think that's great, but I don't know. They just don't have the edge here with games, and I don't know what differentiates them. If it's not going to, maybe it'll be price. I don't know. We're gonna find out. I think that this is a valid thing he's bringing up about what is the point of buying the console if I don't need it. You know, if you're telling me that I don't need it. He's basically saying like, you don't need it. You don't need our new console.
Yeah, but you also don't need like a new graphics card, but people get them anyway. You know, I'm still running, like, I have a PC right now, like a pretty souped up PC. I'm still running on a graphics card that came out, I think, in like 2015, 2016, you know, and it still runs stuff great because PC can do that. You know, I don't need to buy a new graphics card, but eventually it's going to get to a point where it's like, yeah, you know what, maybe I might want to, I can play Halo on my Xbox One X, but like, maybe I do want that next bump, you know? And I think that's kind of the thing that they're going with. It's they're trying to get people into the games, into the software as quickly as possible with as low a barrier of entry as possible. So that way, if they choose to make that jump, they can have something to look forward to, as opposed to just like, you know, jumping into this new ecosystem and jumping onto a new console and being like, okay, now I got to buy all this new shit. Now I got to start playing the game that everybody else has been playing for like months or years potentially at this point and catch up. You know, it's an interesting generation that we're on the precipice of, because it's really, really unlike anything. I feel like this is probably the first time ever, really, that every single every single one of the big three hardware manufacturers are just doing things that are just completely different.
It's awesome.
And that's just really cool, because I don't think that would have been possible. Maybe the 360 before this, the 360 and PS3 were like the closest one to being different, but like even then it was like really minimal. So this is really exciting. This is cool. I like this stuff.
Yeah, with PS2, Xbox, and GameCube, there was just so much cross-generation support or cross-platform support.
Yeah.
That it really was just about what you had in the few exclusives that you would play, which is why I think GameCube was the best console at that time, because it had the best exclusives. But I know some people listening to this show won't agree with that, but we'll see how it all plays out. I'll be really, really interested, and I am really, really interested to see how it all shakes out in the end. Josh Bennett wrote into us and said, "Gentlemen, what is the secret sauce with Sony's first-party studios? With the review embargoes lifting on Ghost of Tsushima, it is receiving fairly positive scores, mainly 8s and 9s. It's another mark to add to their belt of awesome exclusives. What do you think makes Sony Studios so talented? Most publishers can't really say that about all their studios." Chris, what do you make of Sony's first party? Is it as elite as it seems? Because maybe it seems like we or I have a bias covering this for so long, but it's so clear that they have the best family of studios. It's just too bad that they can't get more games out from them. But I think that it's undisputed that they have the strongest family of studios, both in first parties and in third parties. Yeah. What do you make of that? Do you agree? And what is the secret sauce? Why are they so good?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd imagine there's probably like a lot of collaboration going on like between studios. I imagine that there's probably like there's something about the PlayStation first party family of games that feels like they share a lot of ideas, or that they, not necessarily that they work on each other's games, but like I feel like Cory Barlog and Neil Druckmann, are, I don't know this, but like it feels like they're friends, you know what I mean? Whereas like I don't really know if, people at the Coalition know people at 343. I'm sure they do, but it doesn't really feel that way. And Nintendo, I don't even really know who makes their games, really. It's just Nintendo, So they just have this weird kind of combination of being like this big monolith of studios, but also feeling somewhat like a family. I don't know if that sounds like really cheesy or stupid, or maybe not. Maybe that's not even like the right word, really. But I get that sense.
Yeah, it's funny because Nintendo has this weird thing where they have some identifiable studios like Retro or Monolith, but then like a lot of their games just
Nintendo has Monolith?
Monolith, yeah, Monolith, the guys that make Xeno.
I was thinking of Fear, the Fear guys.
Oh yeah, no, and they're affiliated with some others like Game Freak and stuff and HAL Laboratories, but they develop a lot of their games internally with this like really mysterious system too, so it's hard to keep track of everything. It is a bit of a fog of war over there. But
yeah.
with Sony, I think what makes them good, and it's what I've been saying when people feel like they should just buy teams. I'm like, I think that downsizing was really smart in some way, even though it sucked to see some of those studios go, and then buying. In the last 10 years, they bought 2 studios, Sucker Punch, which released Ghost of Tsushima, and more recently Insomniac. I think when you like just find the perfect partners, it allows a harmony to develop where you're making games with probably very little friction, being given runway to explore. And the games, like you said, do become identifiable as part of a family. It's just like Ubisoft's games are identifiable as part of a family. You can tell Sony's games and their strong emphasis on third-person action and story-driven and narrative-driven games is their specialty. I'll combat what Josh says a little bit, though, in saying that not everything's like this. I think that there's a tiering system within Sony. I don't think Media Molecule and Sony London are on the same level as Naughty Dog and Santa Monica. I don't think even Bend is, or Polyphony. And so I think that there's a tiering system there but they do typically release high-quality games, and they typically try to find pretty solid second-party partners. That hasn't been happening as much in recent years, but that was usually the way that they went about their business. So I don't know. I think that there is special sauce there, but I think the special sauce is staying small and really only finding partners that make a lot of sense and shutting down studios that don't. And they've been good about that, and it's been painful, but they've really executed that well. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to see Microsoft has a lot of teams now. I think that I think when you do this, people are going to be interested in where these games are. And I think that creates just chaos for your label. No one's wondering where Naughty Dog's next game is because they're not going to release a game for 5 years. It's over now. And I just feel like when you have all these teams and then teams within teams and blah, 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 it causes a lot of confusion. But we'll see how it all works out for Microsoft. We have to give them more time. David Graham wrote in and said, Colin, the Apache, and the Little Man, what occupation deserves more representation in games? We've had games about YouTubers, Teamsters, park rangers, paperboys, and shopkeepers, for instance. How about door-to-door vacuum salesmen or dog catchers? Keep it copacetic. We will, David. Thank you. This is a great question. Chris, what I always think about Paperboy, the classic arcade game and the NES game.
Yeah.
And like how weird that game is, but how fun it is and how playable it is. It's not really about delivering papers very much. And when you think about it, if you even think about it at a higher level, like when you're playing as race car drivers and all these kinds of things, there's a lot of different professions that are represented. But what would you like? Is there anything that would be interesting for you, like some sort of mundane idea that can be turned into a video game that you would like to see?
Oh my God. I was just talking about this exact subject with my roommates. Like, I think yesterday. We were talking about like, but I can't remember what the hell the career was, and it's bothering me because I don't want to think of something else because it was so good. But the idea of like, oh my God, I'm so angry. This is like the worst shit when your own brain doesn't remember things that only it would know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally hear you.
I feel like I'm having an aneurysm.
I'm more interested in like, so the games he mentions, YouTubers, that would be a YouTuber's life. Teamsters, are you referring to Big Fest on Vita, which was the concert management game? Park Rangers is what the guys that got bought by Valve.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I can't think of it.
Oh, it was Movers. Like people
Mover.
like Movers. Because like
there is one of those right now, isn't there? I think that just came out.
I guess
like a moving simulation.
Well, yeah, that's like a physics-based like kind of fucker. And I guess Death Stranding is technically, if you want to like really, really stretch what Death Stranding is. But like one of my roommates is like a mover in LA, and like he moves like celebrities. Like he moves like he goes to like he just met Barbie, like the real like the woman that Barbie's based on. He met her like the other day because he was moving stuff out of her house, and it was just like the thought of like somebody being like a mover on that level where they could have interesting stories about moving, where like nobody has interesting stories about moving. Moving sucks. But if there was like a game where you had to like move, if you were just a mover and you were moving like imagine moving like one of the Far Cry villains, you know? like oh hey fucking what was the Far Cry 3 guy's name?
Oh, Voss.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Voss is moving. You gotta pick up all of his stuff. You just gotta go through his boxes, and it's just full of insane shit. And then you just slowly realize that like you're in this situation that really just does not. It really is not made for you.
Yeah, so you would make like a moving game. It was like some sort of narrative-driven game. You know what it actually reminds me a little bit of is that game Valhalla that I really liked, which was like when you played as a bartender.
Oh yeah,
and you were just interacting and learning about the people that came to the bar. You could do something pretty cool like that. I really loved that game a lot. By the way, the Park Ranger game I was thinking of was Firewatch, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And Paperboys would be Paperboy Shopkeepers. I think he's referencing Moonlighter. So, yeah, I think, hey, man, there's a time and place for any sort of game, I think.
Yeah.
Nick Himes wrote in and said, hey, CNC, longtime listener and first-time Patreon subscriber for any podcast ever. Thank you, Nick. Welcome. Just wondering what you guys think of when it comes to buying games. What justifies that price? Does the game have to be open world to spend $60? Do you like linear story-driven games? Does multiplayer play a factor in the purchase? Personally, getting older, I find myself liking more linear games like The Last of Us and Uncharted. I'm still a huge fan of Assassin's Creed and used to buy the game Day 1 Collector's Edition, but now I rarely finish a game as they have gotten so big and time-consuming. Also still working on Horizon Zero Dawn, 4th time trying. I lose interest after so many hours. I'm also very active in my local music scene and have other things outside of gaming that I spend most of my money on. Keep up the great work, guys. Thanks for the great content and making my days at work not so boring. You're welcome, Nick. Thank you for writing in. I love this question because we've been talking a lot about game prices and like what goes into it, but we don't really talk about our personal experience about how we reduce a game into pricing and whether we feel like it's appropriate or not. What are you looking for, Chris, when you look to spend $60 on a game? Like what speaks to you? What doesn't? Does it come on a game by game basis? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, like not every game fulfills this need or fulfills this, this tier list that I'm about to display here. But I think generally speaking, if I'm looking to spend $60 on something, it's got to be something that I want to play a lot. I don't need a game to be 80 hours long as I can play the game for 80 hours. You know what I mean? there's a lot of games that are short. There's a lot of games like 5 hours long, that I love and that I've played infinitely over and over and over again, to the point where I've played that 5-hour game way longer than I've played Red Dead Redemption 2. Even though I love Red Dead Redemption 2 for what it is, and it's a big narrative game, and I get it. There's room for that, and I like that stuff. But generally speaking, I want a game that I can play today, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and still have a decent amount of fun. And I found like a decent amount of those. I feel like most of the time when I play a game, it's always something or when I buy a game, it's always something that I could jump back into really, really, really later on and still find myself having a pretty good time with it. So really, I guess replay value is the biggest thing. I don't look for length. I don't look for like 96 hours of professionally animated cutscene cinematics. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool, I guess, but I'm not gonna do that again. I'm not gonna sit through cutscenes again. Every big narrative game that I play again, I skip all the cutscenes.
Yeah, for me, I really look at quality. Yeah. Like, what is the quality of the game? I've said before, I would gladly pay twice as much as I paid for Gone Home or Journey than I did, because there was so much wonderful quality there and respect of my time and something new and exciting. And I know we've really beaten the dead horse with game length and how that's really, I really think that's I think it's a red herring in a lot of ways. I just think people are focusing on all the wrong things. Why do I give a fuck if a game's 60 hours long if it's mediocre? That sounds horrible. I would rather play a 10-hour game. And that's not to say that there aren't games I want to sit down and play for 100 hours, because there are. Like that game that I really love, Fell Seal. I've played that game. I'm really persnickety about the in-game clock in that game, and I'm at 75 hours, and I love it.
Yeah.
But it's fucking awesome, and it respects my time, and it's really high quality, and it's really deep. So I think that for me, it's on a game-by-game basis. There are times where I bought games. I have to admit, like when I bought Doom Eternal and I paid $60 for it when it came out, I'm like, I don't really want to pay $60 for this, but I will. And I don't know why I felt that way, because it's such a high-quality game, but it's just the way it struck me. So I think it's just like on a case-by-case basis. While like when Ratchet and Clank comes out at $40 or $50, whatever, maybe they'll charge 60 or 70 for it. I'll gladly pay more because I fucking love Ratchet and Clank. So I just think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. I don't think there's any calculus that speaks for all games.
Yeah, it can't be objective. And even as far as like going quality, if you're going from a quality standpoint, there's a lot of games that are amazing, honestly, specifically because of their lack of quality. Like Super Smash Bros. Melee is probably like the most beloved Super Smash Bros. Game. And that's because it's broken. And it's broken in such a way that it just makes it just so competitive and so fun. It's the one that was in Evo for like the longest period of time because it was broken in just the right way. Super Mario 64 is like another game that's exactly like that, where it's like, this is a great game, but it's also broken as shit. And it's broken in such a way that it almost makes it like twice as fun than it would be if it wasn't. So there's plenty of games like that where it's like, I would buy, Super Mario 64 at $60 over Odyssey.
Sure.
Even though Odyssey is probably, from an objective standpoint, a better game or like a more quality game, I just know I'm gonna have way more fun with Super Mario 64 and you know what, Sunshine 2, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't know what the hell everybody's problem is with Sunshine.
It's awesome. I love that game.
People are crazy.
Love it. I like it more than Mario 64 for sure. Galaxy, I think, bumped it for me in terms of 3D Mario games off the pedestal, but the point of those games too is that they come from the patchless era. So you're releasing the game you had, and that was it. And it is interesting how that has all evolved, I think, for the better, but has also given developers a lot of excuses. I mean, games when they game, I mean, it's funny to think about, especially for our younger viewers, or listeners, but when games came out, that was it. That was it. The game was out.
Yeah.
You couldn't do anything to it. I remember downloading patches for the first time on PS3 and being like, wow, this is fucking crazy.
It is a weird thing to first see. Just like, they're updating my game? What?
It's super cool. And I remember, like, I would have been horrified releasing games in like the PS1 era. It's like, this game has to be done. Wasn't there that parable with Hitman where they left some like funny placeholder text in the game on PS2, and then it said something like Karen, fill this in later or something like that for like a gun.
Yeah.
And they put that in every one of their games now.
Yeah,
as like a joke.
It's fun. Some of that stuff is really fun. And I think a lot of some of the best games of all time, I think, honestly came out probably back during that time because they wanted to get the game out, but they also were like, okay, this game's broken, but like, in what way is it broken? Okay, so that's a beyond broken. We got to fix that. That's broken, but it's kind of funny. We'll leave it. Whatever. That's fine. They couldn't waste their time or spend a lot of time after release or after they went gold patching things up. And I think a lot of that led to some of the most memorable shit, honestly.
All right, let's see here. We have 2 more questions to get through. Preston McGee wrote in and said, hey guys, with all the talk of who could buy Warner Brothers, I think Google would be smart to pick them up. I agree with you there, actually. I think Sony should start picking up smaller studios. Why spend a big chunk of money when you can buy a lot of smaller studios to fill in time between your larger releases? Drinkbox and Yacht Club would be great pickups. What smaller studios do you think all would be smart to pick up? Thanks for all the work you guys do and keep it up. Thank you so much, Preston. I totally disagree with you here. I first of all, I love Drinkbox Studios. I've been a fan of theirs since the very beginning. And the same with Yacht Club. For people that don't know, Drinkbox did the Mutant Blobs of games, and then they did Guacamelee and others. And Yacht Club obviously does Shovel Knight. The question you have to ask yourself, Preston, is why would you pick these games? Why would you need these teams when you can just get their games? Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
Yeah,
is basically the question. Now, Sony has had a financial relationship with Drinkbox. They actually funded Guacamelee, and Drinkbox had to pay that money back. And Drinkbox has long been an advocate of things like PS Vita. They were one of the last studios to release a huge game on Vita. So and that was Severed, of course, which is a fucking awesome game. Chris, if you haven't played Severed on Vita, you got to play that game. Really awesome game made for the Vita.
Well, what is it?
It's a dungeon crawling first person role playing game.
Oh, weird.
Where you use the touchscreen to fight enemies and like sever their limbs and stuff like that as you go.
Awesome.
Look it up. It's really, really good. Highly recommended.
I'll do that.
And I think that's a great game for the Vita. It came out late. I think it might be on Switch now, but you obviously want to support it on Vita. But I don't know if Chris agrees, but I just don't agree that more is better. I think that it's what we were talking about earlier. If Sony has more of these studios to manage and Scott Rhodey and these guys have to deal with all this shit behind the scenes, then I just think it dilutes what they already have. Mm-hmm. As much as I love Drinkbox and Yacht Club to join the family, the question really is like, why would they do that? They don't really need them. And I keep asking people to consider, what does Sony need? And I still think Sony needs a support studio and a porting studio. That would be Bluepoint. I think Sony needs someone like Quantic Dream, the hole that Quantic Dream would fill. I think that's like super massive. And I think Sony needs another big Japanese developer. And I think that someone like FromSoft would be that. And I know that different corporate entities own these none of that matters. Sony can buy whatever they want if the money's right. So I think that you have to look at the need. Otherwise, they're just distracting themselves. And I think less is more in this case. I think we're going to find out that Microsoft might have made a mistake buying some of these studios that they bought. Although they're all great studios, but it's like, why? Why are you buying Double Fine? Why are you buying In Exile? It's just weird teams to buy, in my opinion. I think even Ninja Theory is a weird team to buy. So what is your take on Sony gobbling up smaller studios? Do you think that that's a wise idea?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think they need any studios, really. I think they're fine. In like some crazy ideal world where like, let's say like hypothetically they needed like a smaller studio to fill in some kind of gap, which I guess technically they do because they don't have anybody making a game quite. I feel like they need something that fills the role of like Limbo back in the day, you know what I mean? Just like a big kind of like smaller thing that's exclusive to the machine. I would suggest Supergiant because I love Supergiant, but
that would be an interesting purchase.
Even then, like they don't need Supergiant necessarily.
No, and it's also about what the needs of the developers are, because once you sell your soul to one of these studios, you're in. I mean, you can't. It's not like Ted Price sold Insomniac and then pocketed the money and left. For him to get the money, he has to stay. Part of what you're doing is buying the talent. It's a risky thing, and it's risky for everyone involved. I think that's why people were surprised about the Insomniac purchase, because it seemed like Ted Price just was not going to sell. And he ended up doing so for $229 million. And there are other owners as well. I think the Algeiers own some of it and others. But yeah, I just don't. I hear where you're going, Preston, but you got to ask yourself about need. And I still think Sony needs a support team more than anything. A team that can just port games and work on the engines and all that. And I think that's Blue Point. I really do. And I wouldn't be surprised if that relationship happens at some point. We will see. Finally, Josh Games wrote in and said, hey guys, with Sony's recent investment in Epic Games, could there be a future where the PlayStation games eventually migrate over to PC, end up being exclusive to the Epic Games store? Thanks in advance and keep up the awesome work. What do you think of that, Chris?
Yeah.
I don't like this idea because I don't think they own enough of Epic to really have that materially affect them positively. If Sony owned 25% of Epic instead of 1.4%, then maybe I would do that. But I think that would be a terrible idea, and they can't lock their games on Epic Games Store. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't think they're going to do that. I think PlayStation games will come to PC, but I think they'll come in the same way that Xbox is doing it through their own like respective app. I don't believe, or maybe even Steam. Honestly, like I don't foresee. I really don't imagine PlayStation just locking their stuff behind Epic. I think they're smart enough to know that like that's not exactly favorable optically, and it also just is unnecessary exclusivity on a platform that really doesn't require it. You're all operating on the same machine anyway. It seems kind of redundant to like to throw your games onto some other company's service and then you have to fork over money, and some of that money's coming back to you, I guess, but why not just make all the money?
No, I totally agree with you. I think with the PC space, because we're seeing, like you said, these games will continue to come to PC. I think people really have to get comfortable with that. We saw Death Stranding, obviously, through 505 Games, and more notably Horizon being published by Sony itself. So and of course there's Helldivers and all the games that came before, and Journey and that game company games. But they're smart enough to know, like you said, that they have to, if they're going to do this and cause a problem with some of their hardcore fans by doing this, then they need to make sure that the sales are there and the sales are on Steam. And I think they know that even investing in Epic Games, they're not investing in Epic Games Store. They're investing in Unreal Engine and Fortnite. No one gives a shit about the Epic Games Store as far as I can tell. So yeah, I think that would be a bad idea, Josh, but I think it would be a great idea if Sony owned more of Epic, because then that would obviously benefit them a lot more. But at 1.4%, there's no net benefit there for them at all. All right, Chris. That's all we have for this episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. It was a fun one.
Yeah.
Hope everyone out there enjoyed it. Any closing comments, Chris?
No, I'm just really looking forward to Ghosts.
Yes, 6 hours from now. 4.5 hours from now when we're recording this, it'll be available for us. It'll be available for you by the time you hear this, so go check it out. We'll talk about it more next week, and we'll obviously do a spoiler cast and review discussion for Sacred Symbols Plus in the coming weeks as well, so please look forward to that. I think that's it. Thanks, Chris, for your time. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate all of you guys out there as well. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for your support. Till next time, goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product of and a registered trademark of Colin's Last Stand, LLC, and is recorded from Richmond, Virginia, and Burbank, California, USA. This show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun. You can find me on Twitter at NoTaxation and on Instagram at CLS Moriarty. Chris is on Twitter at Chris R. Gunn and on Instagram at Chris_Ray_Gun. Sacred Symbols is edited by Dustin Furman. To message the show online, please use Patreon's DM service. As you know, all of Colin's Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/Colin's Last Stand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and we are eternally grateful for your kindness, generosity, and fandom. Avery Lewandowski, an unofficial controller podcast, Andrew Morgan, Gregory Slavinsky, Stephen Nieder, Ross Marenka, Zach Parsley, Jerome Ferreira, John, Miguel A. Brewer, Morgan Ashley, Ben, Azan, Toothless Gibbon, Isaac Wasterman, Michael Vecchio, Joey Finelli, SL the FMA, Ryan T. Mandel, Jorge Palomino, Paul Joyce, Enrique Perez, Don Lee, Daniel Diamore, Brad Cooley, Jeremy Key, Patrick Leslie, Homeworld Hub, Nelson LeBlanc, Daniel Johnson, Sticks and Crits, Alan Abraham, Zach Bonham, Jay Getter, Vexius, Bjorn Campbell, Greg Lotta, Galja, Todd Paxton, Darren Gardner, Of Fortuna, Boots, Megadet, Kevin Komaki, Saul Balcazar, Raul Melendez, Robbie Hensley, Daniel Margaka, Bloody Fang, Eric Harden, Matt Martin, Rodney Coleman, Chris Moore, Spencer Brand, TB Lightning, Antti Kinnunen, Taylor Barkley, Travis Plymel, Chris Galvin, Ryan Murdoch, Jesse Owens, Mason Cadillac, Scott Lovelace, Chris Buston, George Anthony Nunez, Kyle Hagel, Colin Love, Daryl E. Naiman, Ryan R. Kittredge, Michael S., Joshua Smallwood, Damon Weathers, Cody Bradbury, Carl Tolman, Richter86, Barrett Boswell, Andrew Parker, Donnie Nolan, Nolan, Patrick Harper, Gerald Pennington, Greg Juliffs, Blake Israel, Sean Mason, Josh Gravelick, Brian Chan, Connor Gashian, Lawrence F. Prokop, Organic Produce, James Kinslow III, Tyler Bello, Mubarak, Alan Tremblay, McDog 18, Richard Hebert III, Miranda Grubba, Marius Scarson Peterson, Ray Leja, Throw 7, Josh Yeager, Martin Beck, Nathan R., Joe McPartlin, Gamer Filmaholic, Ahmad Tamar, Eric Finkenbeiner, Lou and Ray Loper, Josh Bushing, Dylan Burns, Betty Ann Moriarty, John Schultz, David Chestnut, Anton K., Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Alex Cabrera, Lennon Brixey, Hugo's Desk, Peter Reynolds, William O'Carroll, Phil Crone, Mike Wayan, Adam Nix, Josh McKinney, Michael Gates, Alex Gates, Sean Chandler, Petro Rose, Gio Corsi, Justin Wagaman, Jason Pettit, Chad Lewis, Jeff Pollard, Shane Rayum, John Cordero, Mark Boggio, Keith A. Lewis, Tyler Harris, Matthew Purdue, Toby Shootman, Eric Bateman, Mad Mock Media, Josh M., and Jonathan Rice.